It's the recall check. I mean, it's there, I just can't.
This is the
handle
minutes.
it. I'm having trouble pulling it out.
That's all right, we all do that. I'm just embarrassed. I wanted a military marine, but for a good one, I have one.
Have you done a sound check yet on it? I've got it up if you want to, I don't know if it'll echo or not. Have you done a sound check yet on it? I've got it up if you want to, there you go. Have you done a sound check yet on it? I've got it up if you want to, there you go. Have you done a sound check yet on it? I've got it up if you want to, there you go. Have you done a sound check yet? I've got it up if you want to, there you go. Have you done a sound check yet? I've got it up if you want to, there you go. Have you done a sound check yet? I've got it up if you want to, there you go. Have you done a sound check yet? I've got it up if you want to, there you go. Have you done a sound check yet? I've got it up if you want to, there you go. Have you done a sound check yet? I've got it up if you want to, there you go. Have you done a sound check yet? I've got it up if you want to, there you go. Have you done a sound check yet? I've got it up if you want to, there you go. Have you done a sound check yet? I've got it up if you want to, there you go. Have you done a sound check yet? I've got it up if you want to, there you go. Have you done a sound check yet? I've got it up if you want to, there you go. Have you done a sound check yet? I've got it up if you want to, there you go. Have you done a sound check yet? I've got it up if you want to, there you go. Have you done a sound check yet? I've got it up if you want to, there you go. Have you done a sound check yet? I've got it up if you want to, there you go.
Okay, we'll show you something.
We'll set it.
I've got it up if you want to, there you go.
We'll show you something.
We'll set it.
I've got it up if you want to, there you go.
We'll show you something.
We'll set it.
I've got it up if you want to, there you go.
We'll show you something.
We'll set it.
I've got it up if you want to, there you go.
We'll show you something.
We'll set it.
you. You hear me now?
Are the wires like
Might have a problem.
connected in? Was it clear?
We'll just do it via speakerphone.
They're on, but
Allow you to take. We'll just do it via speakerphone.
they're on, but
Allow you to take. We'll just do it via speakerphone.
they're on, but
Allow you to take.
there's probably 3 different levels of, yeah.
Hey, Anton, which streaming broadcasting software are you using?
It's on YouTube. That's who should.
You gotta have some broadcasting software.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what they're,
OBS, are we using Streamlabs OBS, are we using what?
what kind of program do we use for broadcasting?
Streamlabs OBS?
What kind of program do we use for broadcasting?
Streamlabs OBS?
What kind of program do we use for broadcasting? Alan, what kind of program do we use for broadcasting? Alan has a program do we use for broadcasting? Alan has a program do we use for broadcasting? Alan has a program on Sunday for broadcasting. 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 Alan has a program on Sunday for broadcasting.
Yeah, because when I talk in there, and then I saw myself talk in there on the delay, then I didn't hear anything. But
All right, so we have Mike. There's Mike. I can hear my own voice. I can see it reacting. So we're streaming out.
You can hear it now?
No, I can see it react to my voice.
You can hear it up there.
No, you're.
Alan has a program on Sunday for
yeah, because
What you're
when I
trying to
talk
hear
in
is
there,
something
and then I
else.
saw myself talk in there on the delay, then I didn't
What
hear
you're hearing is
anything.
something completely different.
Well, it's on my computer. It's a
All right,
video.
so we have
The
Mike.
bus.
There's Mike. I can hear
Okay,
my own
currently-
voice. I can see it
So you
reacting.
can see me on your video.
So
I can hear some things. It's not clear, but it is coming through.
No, I can see it react to
But
my
it's coming
voice.
through clear for you.
No, you're.
Alan has a program on Sunday for broadcasting.
What you're trying to hear is something
And then I
else.
saw myself talk in there on the delay, then I
What
didn't
you're
hear
hearing is
anything.
something completely different.
Well, it's on my computer. It's a
All
video.
right, so we have Mike. There's Mike. I can hear
Okay,
my own
currently-
voice. I can see it
So
reacting.
you can see me on your video.
So
I can hear some things. It's not clear, but it is coming through.
no, I can see it react to
But
my
it's coming
voice.
through clear for you.
No, you're.
Alan has a program on Sunday for broadcasting.
What you're trying to hear is something
And then I
else.
saw myself talk in there on the delay, then I
What
didn't
you're
hear
hearing is
anything.
something completely different.
Well, it's on my computer. It's a video.
So we have Mike. There's Mike. I can hear
Okay,
my own
currently-
voice. I can see it
So
reacting.
you can see me on your video.
So
I can hear some things. It's not clear, but it is coming through.
no, I can see it react to
But
my
it's coming
voice.
through clear for you.
No, you're.
Alan has a program on Sunday for broadcasting.
What you're trying to hear is something else. What you're hearing is something completely different.
Well, it's on my computer. It's a video.
There's Mike. He's
Okay,
here.
currently-
See it
So
reacting.
you can see me on your video.
So
Yeah, I can hear some things. It's not clear, but it is coming through.
no, I can see it react to
But
my
it's coming
voice.
through clear for you.
No, you're.
Alan has a program on Sunday for broadcasting.
What you're trying to hear is something else. What you're hearing is something completely different.
Well, it's on my computer. It's a video.
There's Mike. He's here.
Okay, currently-
See
How far are you using both microphones?
No, you're.
You can see me on your list.
It's coming through.
How far are you using both microphones?
No, you're.
There you go.
Now we don't have to worry about it.
Okay.
Thanks, Chuck.
Good job. It was easy. Do it as a profession.
All right, so can we get one more validation? Are you good? All right, great. Thank you. All right. So, while that was going on, I did get a call from Tim Berry with Crow, so I'm gonna get him back on speakerphone. And Sheriff, if you're okay, we'll go ahead and stick to the original agenda. I'm gonna close the public hearing that I opened just for the sake of structure. Hey, Tim? Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
I can. Jim?
Jim? Sir?
All right, so, old business, we're basically, in your packets, you have the Crow report. What we're gonna do is, I think the commissioners moved to accept that report last week, is that correct?
That is correct.
And we'll entertain motions to accept the work of Crow LLC. All right, I have a motion on the floor to accept the Crow report. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Anton. Further discussion.
So, Tim, this is Anton, just for clarification, no modification since the draft and the time of the commissioners' meeting?
Anton, did I hear you ask a question?
Yes.
Anton's question, Tim, is there's been no modification or changes to the report since it was given. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And Jim, do you have any updates on this from?
I have some updates for the council to consider, but it would not change the Crow report in any way. So the information that I would have are more of the things you've asked me to continue to track from January up to April 30th. So I do have that information to present to you, but it would not change in any fashion the Crow report that you have.
Okay. So I have a motion on the floor by Chuck, seconded by Anton to accept the report. During this time, is there any questions from the council members to Mr. Berry that he can answer that I guess wasn't answered or presented well enough from the report? You know, I have a question, Tim. So the SBA conducts their audits. I've not seen all of the audit reports over the years since some of these things came out. And my question is, did you find that these were highlighted in audit reports, or I guess why weren't they addressed, you know, when folks had audited the auditor's office in the past?
So certainly, there is an audit that is performed on commissioner president at that time is also included in that audit interview. The State Board of Accounts then allows the elected officials to respond to that audit, and then they post their audit once they have signed off from local offices on their website once that audit is finalized. As it relates to the negative fund balances and as it relates to internal controls, those have both been mentioned as audit items in each of the last two audits that have been performed by the Board of Accounts.
Okay, and was each negative balance that you addressed in the Crow report mentioned?
As it relates to the negative balance in the, hold on. The payroll clearing account, yes.
Okay,
That was mentioned in each of the last two audits specifically.
okay. Councilman members, is there any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Tim, somehow maybe I misunderstood your presentation initially, but I don't see anything in here beyond the negative and the funding and so forth. Somehow I got the idea that we were going to have like a mini audit and that we would see balances and so forth, especially, thank you very much, from 2020 to the present, roughly the end of 2020, indicating where certain things weren't paid, and I don't see that here. Is that not what we had agreed to?
So we did not enter into this engagement as an audit. This was not an audit. This was a financial review of the funds that were identified to identify expenditures that were out of budget and why your cash balances were falling at fast rates, and why your expenditures were in excess of your budgeted amount annually.
Well, in that case.
I am not a CPA. I would not be involved in doing an audit. The State Board of Accounts is the only ones that can audit you.
No, and that's fine.
You would petition to the Board of Accounts.
Yeah, that's fine, and perhaps I misunderstood, but at this time I'd like to say, when we initially brought this up, it was, and this is not to you, Tim, I'm not speaking to you, I'm not speaking to Crow, I'm speaking to the council, I'm speaking to the commissioners. When this was brought up, we had to, it was believed by me that we were trying to find a problem that had occurred as to why certain things had not been paid during the year 2020. This report doesn't do me any good. I mean, and it's not your fault, Tim. Tim, it's not your fault. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the council, I'm talking to the commissioners. We had a certain problem that there were certain things that were not being paid, and they did not get paid, and we suffered a reprimand from the SBOA. Was it a reprimand or was it a letter? Do you remember, Jim?
Letter.
It was a letter. Okay, so we suffered that. But beyond that, something didn't get paid. And we've got that. I mean, something from the sheriff's department, something from the highways department, and I can't even tell you what the others were. So this doesn't do us any good. I want to know why it didn't get paid.
Can I ask what did not get paid?
We had certain items that did not get paid last year, Tim, but if you're not a CPA, then the question is not directed to you. It is directed to the council and the commissioners.
Yeah, I think what Chuck's, talking about is the fact that certain things, encumbrances, didn't happen, this past year, Tim. And, also, I believe the, letter of whatever, was probably, more focused on an office rather than, what are we, is that through the auditor's office in last?
Yeah, the majority of the stuff that has come in has been letters from various agencies and/or State Board of Accounts and things that had not been paid. Some things haven't been paid for a couple of years, some things, one of them's on the agenda tonight that had not been paid, those kinds of things. And again, I'm not sure that Tim was.
No, again, I'm not saying, it's my fault for misunderstanding that. Throw this off the table. That's what I'm saying. This doesn't do me any good because I misunderstood. Okay? What I'm saying is, how did that happen? What negligence was done? Who did the negligence? Okay? And how can we get back on track so the state isn't sending us letters?
So I think, if I will, a lot more was, discovered. We clearly went to them saying, hey, things aren't right, and we need to figure out why they're not right. And so Tim's, crew did their work.
No, and they did a great job. I'm not saying that. Please, separate the two, okay?
No,
Please separate the two.
We're good, Chuck.
Okay.
Hey, I'm tracking you.
Okay, as long as you're tracking.
Yeah, I'm tracking. But I will go ahead and is there any other questions for Mr. Berry?
Yeah, I still think there is value in the report, in addition to what you're talking about. Because at the time, there were some things that we identified were issues that I think Chuck is right about. And in light of the fact that we had an outgoing auditor and we have a new auditor, just general learning curve and all that stuff, I think it's valuable that we had outside help to come in and call attention to some things. And it does allow us to address some key points that are in that report. But you're right, Chuck, there's some things that still need answers as to why certain transactions weren't done and maybe why some transactions were done that shouldn't have been done. It goes both ways. So, but the report's good and I'm certainly in favor of adopting it.
And I will agree with that, absolutely 100%. For the purpose of the report, now that I fully understand the purpose of the report, I agree with you 100%. I just had to bring up those other things.
No, good conversation. Okay. A motion on the floor by Chuck, seconded by Anton. Is there any other further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of accepting the report? 7-0. Tim, I want to thank you. I've not personally had a chance to get with you, but I know, Jim calls every time that you guys are in touch, and we will continue to be in touch, and I thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
If anyone ever has any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Okay, thank you. Okay, 2021 budget status.
Okay. Council, if I could, we'll try and be brief, but I'm gonna track kind of a number of different topics, so kind of to start with an outline. There's two issues before the county council as far as being the fiscal body. This is our current fiscal year of 2021. Looking at the Crow report, which has been adopted, specifically page 12 and page 15, talks about the significance of looking at budget cuts. There were two transfers that were made on December 14th, a total over $2 million. The general fund, the lit edit, and the EMS building project fund for $2 million. The Crow report recommends and suggests there's two ways. Now, The fact that I say something does not mean that it's going to happen or that I'm even recommending it. But obviously, from the business sense as a fiscal body, you can either cut expenses or you raise revenues. From the government, that would be a tax increase or cutting of expenses. So again, I'm not here, please do not hear anything that I'm not saying about here's how to do a tax increase. But to put numbers, to give you an idea of what that would be, the additional revenue would need to be about 24% increase to square this amount that would be needed by the end of 2021. Or a budget cut of 19.7. So starting out with positive, a few things that have occurred since the 30th to the 7th. One is, in looking at this, April, which many of the departments are starting to take a hard look at their budgets, a hard look at their cut. April had the smallest deficit of the 4 months. January, February, March, and April, there was 127,000 approximately difference between receipted in and expenditures. That's the best. Other positive to keep in mind, by the end of May, early June, settlement is coming in. That is the large amount of money that comes into the county that can be distributed. That money is on its way. Also, you have from the American Rescue Plan approximately $2 million that will be coming in sometime into May, June. Now, recommendation, this is just my personal opinion, nothing more. Just hold on to that $2 million, not spend it, not do anything. A memo came out from the Treasury today as far as how that can be spent, what the categories are. I did take and talk to a couple other attorneys today that work in that field. This is very flexible as far as what those rules would be. So my recommendation at this point is just take the $2 million, it will go into a specific account, and then allow you as a fiscal body to look at how that can be. Why I say that, one thing that's clear, you can't just take the $2 million and put it in the general fund. That is not allowed. So, looking at the 30th as far as the ledger, there are 15 funds that were in the red. They have a deficit number as of April 30th. This includes the general fund at approximately $1.6 million. The total amount is $2.7 million. The cash amount that Owen County had beginning on 1/1/2021 was approximately $7.2 million. Each one of your 4 months, January, February, March, and April, have been deficit spending. So as of the 30th, again, approximately $5.5 million is what's in that ledger that you would have. This is a concern that you saw from the Crow report and others that have come before you, is that the reliance of this year, in 2021, of just dipping in the cash reserves is probably not a viable option. And so now with these facts, there's deficits. The cash reserve will most likely not cover. The number looking at as you begin this process would be realistically about a 20% cut is kind of would be a goal of looking at where you want to get to. So what needs to be done, our look from kind of 1A, 1B. One would be the hard look at the cutting of actual expenditures in 2021. Trying to be clear. So an appropriation you are allowed to spend that. If I could use an analogy, if you have a credit card, you have a credit limit. That credit limit, maybe it's 20,000, maybe it's 50, but you can use that credit card up into that limit. That does not necessarily mean in reality that you actually have that money and you can start paying these monthly bills and everything. So what I would ask from the department heads, elected officials working on their budgets, please concentrate on your actual expenditures. For example, I'm just saying, so this is purely a made-up example. If in 1151, which is Chris's EMS fund, if there was a line, and there is not, but if there was a line, $300,000 for ambulances, and you say, okay, well, we just won't buy them this year, let's just cut that. That's a paper cut. All you're doing is eliminating an appropriation that you weren't going to do anyway. So what I mean is that the other is, in the categories that you're expending money, can that be reduced? That's a harder cut than just on the appropriation, but that would make a difference in your budget. The other is the squaring of the accounts, if I may. You have these 15 funds. Now, some of them are grant funds, different category. Those are a lot of times are reversible. But looking at your general fund and some other of these accounts, particularly payroll clearing, these accounts that are in the red need to be squared. They need to be put back into the black. In the Crow report, other people that have come up to you, different things and possibilities. Riverboat, the lit edit, taking that money, there's others that you may want to then, in essence, take that, transfer that money into those accounts. That is truly the province of you as the county council, of what path you would like to take. It's not just as simple as though just taking a vote. Those would need to be vetted, need to make sure that, for example, this particular account can be used for that expense. Some cannot. So let me give you just a concrete example. The Recorder's Perpetuation Fund, by statute, can only be used for certain aspects. So, not that you were doing that, but if it said, well, hey, there's 200,000, let's just take that 200,000, that's restricted. So that's part of the complexity as you draw your pathway, what account. I don't think, respectively, there's any other option, though, that 1A has to be done as far as squaring these accounts. Once you have that path of there's X amount of money in Fund A, B, and C, it equals this roughly $2 million, that's a path. That doesn't change anything about your spending, it doesn't change anything about revenues or expenditures, but it now puts your books in order. So for the planning, that can be done. 1B, 1A.1 is the cutting of the spending, the option. The reason I say that, even if you were inclined, and just asking, even if you're inclined for a tax increase, that could not take place, even if it started today, till October 1st as far as the draw. The first time that you're gonna see that revenue would be January 1st of 2022. So it doesn't really a viable path if that was going to be the option. So it's going to have to be in the cuts. Now, again, settlement is on its way. You're gonna have that amount of money to look at. I would respectfully ask, kind of look at that when that settlement hits. I'm just gonna use June 1st. June 1st, December 31st is kind of what that path of that money is. So June will look very good, but you still have July, August, September, and such. The American Rescue Plan is $2 million. Just got to take a look on what that can be used. One area to keep in mind, though, lost revenue is one of the categories. So if in 2018, here's the amount of revenue coming into Owen County. Because of the COVID, if there was a loss, there might be a possibility of shifting some of that money. That's going to take some work, to look at, but that's a different option. Different things taking a look at, minor. What I can tell you is, in a few of the departments that I've been working with, there are a number of departments that are taking a real hard look at the budget, at their technical budget. They're looking to see, and we found a few that just for some reason doesn't have an appropriation, or in some case, the appropriation, let's just say it was $500 for supplies, but a bill for $700. If I may respectfully submit to everyone, an appropriation is not a suggestion. Appropriation means that's how it's supposed to be. Not trying to be critical, not trying to be anything, but it's no longer close enough is good enough. If you don't have an appropriation, you really, that's it. You just can't spend the money. Looking at the transfer. So cleaning up the internal account is being done. A couple of your accounts that don't come out of the general fund, the highway, EMS, there's good streams of revenue coming in. They're balancing out. So the likelihood, and I'm speaking now from the departments, but working with them, they're working very hard, so they're not gonna come back here and ask you for an appropriation out of the general fund that you don't have. But those streams are matching. $900,000 grant money just came in, for the road. So the highway is gonna be able to go ahead and produce, roads. 900,000 of that is coming in from the community crossings grant. Those things are all going on that I'm working directly with those particular departments of presenting. You have, that as an option tonight, purely if this is your decision, about a hiring freeze. I would respectfully, and in my opinion, at least at the minimum, I don't believe you have the ability right now to hire any additional new positions. I would have to consider that. The other part of a hiring freeze is about vacancies. Now, there's an option for your hiring freeze, if someone can come and ask for an exemption. But those are some possibilities. So taking a real good hard look at the amounts, not going over any appropriation, and asking each department to take a look at each 20% as your measure. Now that's all 2021. I'll wrap this up just in these 2 minutes. You also have the 2022 budget hearings that are coming forth. Now, recommendations that I would make for anyone looking at their 2022 budget. One method is, here's what I turned in last year. This is what I turned in, looks good. Respectfully, that will not work this year. What you need to take a look back, take a look at your budget in 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, your actual expenditures. You need to be able to present to the county council what you've actually spent and where they think there could be cuts in your actual expenditure. So this will be a real budget. There's also, by statute, the commissioners have what's called an executive summary of 14 different topics of roads, litigation, all of those things that will be prepared for you prior to your budget hearings to take a look at. Your budget hearings for the 2022 budget, I think you still need to take a good hard look at that 20% number to give you a range. You are the fiscal body. If you're considering tax or different things, that's something for 2022. But a budget based on last year's budget, if we just turned in the exact same budget, respectfully at this time, I don't know if there's enough cash reserve that would cover that. So this is an opportunity, I mean, for everyone knows their department, their needs and everything 100% better than I'm just trying to put some empirical numbers down here and try and get some of these accounts out of the red as quickly as we possibly can.
With that, sir. So you and I spoke briefly today about the need to look at funds with a cash balance. Sure. and start moving that. And then again, you also, there's some that you've had to do research on as far as a legal pathway to utilize those funds, or for us to look at that. Do we need to meet again this month before the June meeting, or in a special session, or independently as the council to get some of that stuff done?
I would absolutely make that recommendation. You have a June meeting, but I guess my opinion would be, I don't know that you have 30 more days just to kind of deliberate, like, wonder what we might do. You have on this one, there's a miscellaneous fund balance, at least list some of the funds. When I referred to lit edit, at least on the 30th, it had $1.2 million in it. You still have Riverboat at roughly about $400,000. Respectfully, there are some other funds that aren't restricted that have in the range of about $400,000, $500,000 in there. I think what would be asked of you of the county council would be, what direction do you want to go? If you are looking at, here are the 4 funds we want to take a look at to eliminate these red. then those, whether myself, Crow, and other people that would be involved, can kind of go look and double check, okay, this fund would fall in there, that's a possibility, and then what's the mechanism of moving that. The other thing that I would think that would probably be for the county council is, look, taking that budget, it's, you know, we're not quite half of the year, what's available for 20% of real cuts over the next 6 months? What area would you like to look at? What resolutions, ordinances, if any, that you want to look, you want to take away appropriations, technically should be a resolution where you're going ahead and removing some of the appropriations. I don't know that there'd be any other way, I'm not trying to tell you to meet these other times, but I would think at some point, at a minimum, a county council meeting, if not so much if you just wanted to open it up and have a special meeting, county council would invite others in to come forth and tell you, hey, here's what we think we can do in one of those departments. I would think that it would be very beneficial. I also think that waiting another 60 or 90 days is probably not the best option. Anytime within the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Yeah, so as far as, and I'm speaking as one of 7 here, I understand that, but, you know, from my point of view, all funds with a cash balance are on the table to be considered. And so, I guess identifying those funds, bringing them to the table, and sorting those out as a council is clearly what I think we should do as far as from my point of view. But I'll open it up to you others, and you guys can chime in.
I think we need a master list to start filtering in some of the suggestions and things that our officials have given us, because, you know, I've been hearing bits and pieces about, you know, so-and-so can take this money and apply it here and take, you know, I know the sheriff has some ideas that he has, even our surveyor has a couple of ideas, and every little bit adds up. But, you know, you kind of hate to be, you don't want to be overwhelmed by 4 or 5 different things being thrown at you. So you kind of have to start somewhere and do one step at a time. And I think that we need to kind of have a, you know, repository of these items to go ahead and start checking off the list and getting them done.
And
So we can move forward.
Some of them do have a legal pathway to use that we have. So how long do you need to, you know?
I can give you, like using a statistical number, I could give you kind of a 95% probability that this will be fine in a short time. If you're asking me, and I'm gonna be candid to the entire council, if you would want in 10 days, 100% certainty of every single fund in here of what can be used, no, I would not have that ability. But I would be able to pick out, I would say, a good half dozen that would make a lot of sense, that could be vetted quickly if that's the way you would want to go. I don't think it would help anyone to go through and say, you know, the last fund, if you run the ledger from January 1st to May 7th, I think it's roughly about 700 pages. And you don't want that, I mean, going here, you know, line. But I think if we could take a look at Lit Edit, let's take a look at Riverboat, take a look at a few more of the cumulatives. Respectfully, there's a couple of the departments that do have funds that statutorily you would be able to use or use specifically. I think the key would be to consider, if you want to start at a starting point, getting that general fund out of the red. So let's start there on what can be moved. Work your way from there. But if you're ready to have a meeting in 10 days, I'll be here and I'll do my very best.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, if 10 days is really, you know, I mean, nobody wants to put pressure on you. You're a good hell of a job anyway. But I mean, if you could say that we would have a 95% possibility at the next meeting, and then we took 75% of those recommendations, that would be a good start, wouldn't it?
Well, absolutely, Councilman. It's what you're the most comfortable and how quickly you want to address this problem. 30 days, for me, of course, absolutely. What I'm saying, if you want it done before then, I will work and have information for you prior to that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think, you know, you've been very detailed in your reports. But quite honestly, for the benefit of the entire council, I think it's important that we do have a specifically outlined number of steps or processes, exactly what line item, exactly what dollar amount, what to lower here or what to adjust there. You know, I'm gonna use the surveyor as an example again, and I know he's not brought up his request officially, but in that situation, it would allow us to be able to figure out, okay, how much money could we take off of the general fund and use, you know, the surveyor's perpetuation fund, for instance, to cover part of a salary. And so, you know, that starts knocking off dollar amounts off the general in a productive way. But we need to kind of have that outlined for the council to know, okay, we need to lower this line item by this amount. And then take those votes and those actions as quickly as possible, you know, June meeting or special meeting or whatever that might be, and get those things off the list at that point.
I think we need to have a special meeting and each one of us write our ideas individually and come up with it with Jim and talk with him on that.
Yeah.
And he might have his and maybe ours will be a lot like theirs, like his ideas, but I've got several myself, and I think that we need to get together and meet before the next regular meeting so we can kind of have some idea of what we're gonna do at the next meeting.
Well,
Yeah, and we need to engage our department heads
About his
too.
recommendations, and, I mean, what particular recommendations do you have?
Well, I'd rather do it in a regular meeting. For one, I'm against raising taxes. That's our last
Well, no,
straw.
absolutely 100%. This county has already raised taxes three
Yeah,
times in the last 4 years.
And I think we need to discuss part of them to where he can tell us what we can do legally and like to do it the best way. And if we know the money that we're getting from the funds, it's extra funds, that will help us a lot.
Yeah, but I just asked him if 95%, he's able to get 95% to us at the June meeting. We began the implementation at 75% of his recommendations. I don't see why cutting his time down, because he just said that in 10 days, he couldn't give us 100%, and probably not even 95% of his recommendations. So we're kind of asking him to do something in the line that Anton has asked, only you want to shorten that time and not give him enough time.
Not shorten the time, I'd say like 2
Well,
weeks.
as far as I
2
know,
weeks.
10 days from now is a lot sooner than.
Well, I didn't say 10 days, I
well,
said,
now, if he can provide us a 95% product in 10 days, you know, I think that's the.
we know that 2 weeks.
2 weeks, right.
What about 2 weeks?
Would be reasonable.
I don't think we should wait till the June meeting. I think it needs to be done in ASAP.
Yeah.
So, I'm pulling up
You're gonna
my,
make it a special regular meeting.
Yeah.
Alright.
And there's nothing wrong with, one more comment real quick, Kelsey.
Sure,
And-
yeah, I just
and-
wanted to add,
Yeah.
sure, Jen, looked at this too, but just in terms of the timing of your meeting, I went through the expenditure shifting statutory funds that were in that abbreviated pro report. And to use some of these monies, you have to pass ordinances, and there are a lot of specific steps involved to using some of these funds. So I would not recommend waiting very much longer to meet, there are gonna be additional steps needed to use some of the funds. I'm just saying that just from a brief cursory review of some of these funds that I think would be useful to relieve pressure from the general fund. But, I mean, Jim can tell you more about it, but it's just,
But it will not be coming in 2 weeks and saying, let's now vote for A, B, and C, and
Right.
moving them.
I don't mean that.
There will be, but I think that, especially if we're looking at the general, there's probably 2 or 3 accounts that would come to mind that we could start that process. The second part would be looking at, and I will say this because we can serve, because he's already brought this up quite in public. There's a whole other level of avenues. For example, the corner perpetuation fund can be used to pay part of the building GIS. Probably close to 20% of that salary could be paid. That's gonna take a 20% reduction out of the building salary out of there. Those all avenues are being looked at too. So you have what I would say the macro, looking at these funds, that's a macro level, and you have a micro level also of trying to add 10,000, 20,000, those type of amounts.
so in identifying these, and we'll work with you on it, but, to have this meeting, we wanna be first with the most and be able to knock out as much as we possibly can to help the general fund as quickly as possible. So,
Yeah, and if there's any members in particular, like Verl alluded to, that have a specific idea, then get an email to Jim so that he can put that on the radar. Because we have to have a centralized location where we have these things to track. We can't just assume that it's being done or think about it 2 weeks later, you know. We don't want it to be chaotic, we want it to be organized in some fashion. So, you know, funnel those into Jim, I would think.
I agree.
so I'm going to suggest, and if I'm wrong, I'm just looking at days I have open. We can work through it though. 24th or 25th, which is a Monday or Tuesday in May. What does everyone else's availability look like?
Tuesday works for me.
Okay, so you're saying the 25th. Anton, you're saying the 24th works?
Either day works.
Okay. Either for you?
Either day for me.
Alright, well, I guess we're going with the 25th. Amy's gotta have her way.
That is a Tuesday, correct?
Yes, I'll yield to you
I'm
on the
down
time.
that day, that's my.
Would you want to do a 6? You know, is that better? What do you?
Anton's really the one that I would be worried about, because he has to drive that.
I can do a 6.
Let's
I'll
do a
be
6.
hangry. I'll be hangry, but that's okay.
Well,
No,
I think,
6 is fine, or,
I think we need to get what our ideas are to Jim, so he can sort out the ones that can't be
Jim?
done.
Tuesday, the 25th, 25th, at 6 p.m.
6 p.m.
Are you good with
That's
that?
fine.
Commissioners, of course, you're invited as well. Department heads.
But I would like to make sure that the actionable items we can do that night, based on your recommendations, what were the first things we can do, so that way we can begin. If we're gonna do the meeting, let's do it.
Sure, I understand, I think that's a good way of saying, the only hindrance might be that you may then, on the 25th, it might be, well, here's our path, but you may have to do a resolution in 2 weeks.
No, and that's fine, but what I'm saying is actionable items, not just resolutions. If there's something you know that doesn't require an ordinance, but you see obviously that it would work, then I would like to have those things then presented first so we can act on them.
Okay, understood.
All right, do you have anything else?
No, nothing else.
Sheriff?
Yeah, I agree with what Lan mentioned, before you have to get to the attorney. If this is going to affect departments, certain departments, you know, I think the department heads need to know what you are proposing, that way we can.
Yeah, listen, again, you can, reach out to any of us, the attorney, be here the night of, you know, certainly that's.
so I would say, I mean, just like a member of the council, if a department head has a specific idea or suggestion, they know their department best, we really need to make it a point to engage with them and not alienate them from the process. You know, we shouldn't be the one to decide what, you know, service should be changed or what employee might need to be let go, for instance. But the office holder should be the final person to say, you know, this, I can reorganize this, or I can do this differently, or I can change up how I cross-train employees and do with one less. You know, I'm just throwing these out as suggestions, but that's where the real meat of the decision-making probably should occur initially. And then we can try to help vet that, and maybe there's some caveats to that or some concerns with doing it one way or the other, and we can have a discussion on that before we make a final decision. But the department heads very much need to be engaged in this.
Well, a good guideline, is just like he said, if each department could cut their cost 20%, you know, in some form or another, that would be a good guideline. There's some cases, I know you can't do that, but if all department heads could really consider and see whether they can do that, that would help us a lot. I know that as a county people would sure rather do that than to raise taxes. You know,
I was talking to another county, I've been talking to a couple different people I know in other counties the last week, and kind of sharing our situation with them and discussing, have you been in this situation before? What have you done? We're not alone in this over time. This is cyclical. A lot of cases, I know when I first came on the council, we came in at a horrible time. We were $1 million in the red then, in 2002, and we came out of that. It's a solvable issue, as Jim has pointed out, but unfortunately it comes and goes. It goes in these huge cycles. And a lot of those council members that I've talked to have mentioned that, there is a combination of solutions. And in the cases where taxes were considered for increase, a lot of times that didn't pass, for the reason being that if you don't have a specific hard line, then there's no impetus for efficiency. There's no motivation to do things differently or think outside the box. And I think that, not that we're trying to force that, but I think that we need to be very careful as far as things like taxes, because that might very well hurt us in the long run. It's so easy just to say, oh, we just get more money and we spend more money. And that's really not the best long-term solution.
But let's not kid each other. The downturn of last year did not just affect us,
Correct.
It affected Owen County residents as well.
Yeah.
So for us to go, oh, well, we could make it, so we're gonna hit it on your back, would be I'll stand up against that.
Yeah, and I think that's why a lot of counties have avoided that, because it's the same thing everywhere,
So, before we move on to the sheriff, I want you, we have a resolution in your packet implementing a hiring freeze. And it's resolution number 2021/11. And, Jim, are you okay with the reading of
Yeah,
this?
it is short. For those who go to the commissioners meeting, it's not 8 or 9 pages. It is required by law to be read out loud. I'll go ahead and do that. This is resolution number 2021-11. It is a resolution implementing a hiring freeze for Owen County, Indiana. Whereas pursuant to Indiana Code 36-2-5-381, the county fiscal body shall fix the number of officers, deputies, and other employees whose compensation is payable from the county general fund, the county highway fund, the county health fund, the county park and recreation fund, aviation fund, or any other fund which a county auditor issues warrants for compensation. And whereas the fiscal body of Owen County has determined that Owen County is in need of a temporary hiring freeze due to current budgetary constraints. Now therefore be it resolved by the Owen County Council of Owen County, Indiana, that a temporary hiring freeze will take effect upon passage of this resolution on the following conditions. 1, a hiring freeze exists on vacant and future vacancies is effective on May 11, 2011, for the adoption of this resolution on May 10th of 2021. Employment offers extended before 5 p.m. on May 10th of 2021 will be honored. By Friday, May 14th of 2021, I'll read this twice. All Owen County departments shall provide the Owen County auditor with a list of vacancies within their respective departments. Again, by Friday of the 14th, this Friday, 2021, all Owen County departments shall provide the Owen County auditor with a list of vacancies in their respective departments. 3, no transfers will be permitted among departments during this hiring freeze. 4, no seasonal, temporary, or extra help employees may be hired during the duration of this hiring freeze. 5, for the duration of this hiring freeze, it is understood that public safety critical operations may require continued staffing to serve the public effectively. A department may request an exemption to the hiring freeze by submitting a hiring freeze exemption form, which is Exhibit A of this resolution, to the Owen County Council. The Owen County Council will review the exemption request at a public meeting, and by majority vote, they will either grant or deny the exemption request. This resolution will be in full force and effect upon its passage, approval, recording, and publication as provided by law. If so, it will be passed and adopted by the Owen County Council at a regular meeting held on today's date of 2021. The Owen County Council, Andrew Wood, President, Brooke Keith, Vice President, and Anton Neff, Amy Casebeer, Chuck Hess, Nick Robertson, Paul Chesser, members of the council, would be attested by Sheila Reeves, the auditor. And then on this, there is an Owen County exemption form It's a one-page document, so anyone would go, the procedure would be this, you put out your date, your department, the reason for the request, why you need it, what alternatives have you done, what consequences if not granted, you sign it, and it is submitted to the county council for their consideration. Respectfully, it's not part of it. This would be the resolution. You are the county council, you determine the number of deputies. So every department would have to come before you before hiring anyone if you so pass this resolution.
The one concern I have is I know that there's an officer who's about to retire. So if we were to pass this ordinance, and I know you had the exemption for public safety, and you read it rather quick and didn't give me time to digest it. Oh, my fault for not getting it. Would that allow him to replace that officer?
Here's what it would do. The direct answer to your question is yes, with the approval of the majority of the county council. So the procedure would be, if this deputy retires, before he could retire.
Yeah, he'd have to fill out this thing, and he'd have to come to us, yeah.
He would come to you, you would make that determination.
Let me say it this way, that's public safety right there.
Correct.
I don't see why he doesn't have, I mean, if he has somebody that can come on immediately, so he doesn't have to wait 30 days to get this guy aboard and send him to ILEA, get him all trained, get him all fitted and everything, why public safety? I think, I've always stood on public safety side, guys. Anybody who knows me knows that I stand on the side of public safety. And where we should be cautious and concerned is when we begin to put a string on that guy who's in charge of our public safety. And I would just like to wonder and ask you if there's any way we could put an exemption for public safety purpose.
That is, if I'm tracking correctly, that's what the exception form is built in here for.
No, you're missing the point. Public safety should be exempted from the hiring freeze, period. He shouldn't have to fill out a paper to come in at the next monthly meeting to get an approval to hire a deputy that needs to get on the road. Am I out of line here, Sam?
Well, and I understand what Chuck's saying. For me, I'm getting ready to have an officer retire here in a few days. And knowing that he's retired, he's already submitted his resignation to me to retire, I need to advertise for that position. I'm not adding an additional officer, I'm just filling the vacancy.
And I understand what you're both saying. I also know that in 2 weeks we have a meeting, and then in 2 weeks after that, we have an additional meeting. So, I don't, and you and I have talked about this, and I explained that, there's going to be probably more meetings, so,
Sure. Well, let me ask the next question, how long is the duration of the freeze?
That is totally up to you as the county council. What I would be directed to say, come in here and remove it, but right now, it is, it's an indefinite freeze.
You're welcome to make that part of a motion.
No, I'm just trying to assess in my head, because it just seems to me that, and I get it, 2 weeks is great, hopefully nothing would ever happen, it just says, I'm a very public safety kind of guy, and I think putting that kind of limitation on a police department.
We
especially if something
appreciate
would
that,
happen.
but, at the same time, I mean,
Okay, I'm making mention, we're discussing.
I appreciate.
I mean, as for me, I can go ahead and fill out the form, because I know he's retiring.
If you're good with it, Sam, I'm good with it.
Then submit it to you, is that your next meeting?
I just fired someone today, and I have a hiring list that I can hire off of with somebody that could potentially start next week, because I have people on my list that don't have jobs. If we put a freeze in, and I'm gonna have to wait in addition, and it takes months to get a 911 dispatch.
But this, again, public safety, 911, right there, thank you, I'm sorry.
Well, would you be willing to fill out the paperwork on that?
I'll fill it out right now and submit it to you under elected officials here in a minute, or under department.
You see where I'm going with that?
Because I know I'm going to be hiring somebody.
I don't think it's as prevalent as we think. Clearly, you've got a situation you've known about and you want to exit. You know what? I'm gonna tell you this. If you wanna go outside and fill that out, and I'll allow you to come back on the schedule and at the end of the meeting, or or we can look at other ways, but I'm telling you,
Well, clarify for us, because I'm getting the answer already, but clarify for the public where the funds for 911 and the sheriff's department come from.
Well, they're, from the sheriff's department on the payroll, there's outside sources. Correct, there's outside sources for the sheriff's department, there's outside sources for the 911, that is correct.
Mm-hmm.
FICA, perf, insurance, different things like that. So I guess I'm gonna answer a question you didn't ask, if that's okay.
Yeah.
The difficulty is, and I do understand, my background is, Councilman, 20 years in public safety, working with law enforcement. So I'm not gonna come to you and say, hey, let's find a way not to help them.
Yeah.
Just what you've seen here.
Yeah.
The sheriff has one, 911 has one.
Yeah.
Chris may have one. I guess what I'm saying, in trying to draw a line then of which departments we do or don't, I'm asking as council, I can write right here, the sheriff's department, the 911 dispatch, the EMS are all exempt, we can do that. Does that cover everyone in public safety? Because let me ask you this then, respectfully. Now the health department has one, there's only one person in the health department. Well, now we don't have it. So I guess the question, I'm just saying, does this work? If it doesn't, terminate it. But I don't know where we finally draw the final line on public safety.
Yeah, well, I can help you draw that line. I'm not gonna call the health and safety department if somebody's holding up the bank with a gun. I'm not gonna call the health department if somebody has a heart attack over there at Bev's. I'm not gonna call 911, I'm not gonna call the health department when I can go call 911.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's a clear delineation that we can make. All I'm saying is that you answered the question, that these funds are outside of the normal levy and are supported by the state.
There are different revenue sources for those. How they affect, when you look at the general fund, when you start pulling in here, well, does this one in there, is it not? That's not quite as crystal clear, but the main point is the main point.
Yeah.
There's funding that comes in to help in those areas.
And that's the only reason I'm saying, I think for public safety purposes that we may consider, and I'm just asking you to consider, if you all say no, Chuck, you're out of line, fine, say I'm out of line, but,
Just for clarification, so the E911 is specifically, if you will, self-funded, independent of everything else. The sheriff's department's significant sources of revenue are income and property tax. It's a very large chunk of our tax levied and normal fund sources. So that's where a big impact would be. 911, not so much as far as financial.
right.
But I think this all boils down to the mechanism and what the most efficient way of managing the freeze would be. We could go with the listing of exceptions automatically in the ordinance up front. Or we can do the reverse and not have the exceptions, but then have everybody go with the request as needed. So I think it boils down to which of those two methods would be the most efficient and maybe the most fair across the board. I kind of lean more towards the everybody files an exemption and leave it open otherwise.
Can I call for a consensus then? Who would want the entire thing presented as an exemption, or just that right there? There's one.
Okay, let's clarify that. Are you asking,
I'm asking, do you support everybody filing for an exemption? So that's two.
I have mixed emotions, John.
I know, so do I.
I do.
Supports it.
I'm more mixed on it, and I'll tell you why. I feel like the last meeting that we had, we came here to do a hiring freeze, and everybody had a reason why they should be accepted from a hiring freeze. So, I don't even really, if there's no, teeth, if we're not really serious about doing it and meeting, what's that?
oh, no, go ahead.
If we're not serious about meeting an objective here, then, why even have the discussion on it.
Allow Polly to make a,
I just was, I guess I was under the assumption as well as, I mean, that emergency services and public safety was exempt. And so I kind of figured, you know, EMS, sheriff, 911 would be exempt from the hiring freeze. And so, I mean, that's kind of what I was thinking that it was going.
It was
And
like that.
Yeah, and.
Then you can see how there's other public.
Yeah, but I kind of tend to agree with Chuck because that's our public safety there.
thank you, I'm sorry, you can see how when you start saying that, what you're saying is, we don't know the difference between emergency services and every other service. That's what you're saying.
Emergency, highway department, emergency services.
They don't work 24 hours a day.
Sometimes
I can tell you right now, EMS does, 911 does. Hold on a second.
Sometimes they do, and that's an emergency.
Hold on a second. They aren't scheduled 24 hours a day. You know what I mean? And I get that, I totally get that, but we're talking about emergency services. Can everybody agree there are gunshots, heart attacks, and somebody has to be there to pick up the phone at 911? I mean, these are the basic support.
Listen, I am a proponent for those as well. I'm just saying that he has built a mechanism into the resolution for hiring those special positions, and it might not be a bad idea to take a look at them, you know, each time or get you to say, hey, here's where I'm really at, and this captain is really important, so I really need to backfill him. Or you might say, you know what, we've implemented a new operational tempo. I think, you know, I might be able to save some money and not feel it. So, you know, I think it could be used for something like that, and that's workable for everybody. Now, I'm not against an exception for law enforcement, EMS, or whatever, but I feel like he has built that in here, so.
I think there's a couple things
Yeah,
here.
you're next.
Oh, sorry, there's something else.
No, go ahead.
Couple things we need to look at. There's a time frame if we implement this program. So if somebody's losing an individual and they fill out the exemption form, how long is it gonna be before they get to us and we okay it? Now, second thing is, I don't know if we maybe ought to wait until after we have our next meeting. There's a lot of things we hope to accomplish, I think, as we look at these funds that we can transfer to clean up some of these line items. Are we gonna have to implement a freeze? Will we know more in 2 weeks when we look at these figures? I think we will. I don't wanna see the county go backward. And then I don't wanna penalize an office just because they're outside the exempt and we make them kind of jump through 47 hoops. So I mean, I don't know the answer other than maybe if we postpone this tonight, I would be willing to make a motion that we postpone this and give it till the end, our next regular council meeting. And then we'll see what we know then and whether or not that's still where we want to go with this freeze.
All right, so in front of you, you all have resolution number 2021-11. I'll entertain motions on whether or not you want to move forward with that motion or not to.
I make a motion that we do not tonight move forward with that motion.
Okay, I have a motion. A motion on the floor by Nick, seconded by Chuck. Discussion.
One question to Jim. Jim, do you think it's reasonable for us to postpone this based on the fact that we've asked you to come back to us with perhaps 90% of possibility?
Yeah. So, Council, if you want me to come back in 2 weeks, I'll bring two options. I'll bring this one, and then I'll bring you one with the exemption.
No, that's not what I'm asking.
Okay.
What I'm asking is opposed to what we've got sitting here and what we discussed earlier about bringing back the initial functions that we could look at, or line items to look at that we could replenish the general fund with. What, if you were to juxtapose those, would it be reasonable enough for this body to postpone the vote on this hiring freeze for another 3 weeks?
Councilman, I'm gonna ask you as honest as I can. The reasonableness is this. County council, you have $2.7 million in the red. At some point, county council, whatever decision I've just described here, pass it, don't pass it. All I'm saying is, at some point, whether it's a hiring freeze, whether it's 20% cut, there is a reality, respectfully, that $2 million has to come somewhere. I have absolutely no problem in any way, sir. Be back here in 3 weeks, you take a look at it. I am saying this to everyone, though. 3 weeks will not cause you a problem. 90 days, I don't know. And you didn't ask me about 90 days, you asked me about 3 weeks, that could be done. But these are the type of decisions that are gonna have to be made. We want to exempt the sheriff's department, EMS 911 fine, or the other way. You are the county council, you are the fiscal body. This is clearly in your province of determining how many what are called deputies in each office to do. It's a long answer to a very short question. It's reasonable, I can come back in 3 weeks, but at some point, the time will be there where it's gonna either be yay or nay on this pattern, or B or C or D.
Well, I appreciate that.
Mr. Black, just for clarification, I understand everybody's coming from, I appreciate the support. I don't mind filling out the form, if that's part of the resolution. I don't mind filling out the form to come to you. My suggestion would be, like for me, knowing that my captain's getting ready to retire, it's not necessary that right now that I fill the captain's position, because that's, that's a certain type of position. It's necessary that I fill the officer's position because I might need them on the road or whatever the case is. I don't mind filling out the form, whether we come back tonight, gets approved, or we come back on the 24th, 25th, when you have the next meeting. As far as filling out the form, I don't have a problem.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion on the floor at this time from Nick, seconded by Chuck. Do I have any other further discussion?
I have a question.
Yes.
On the exemption form, did we say how long that it would take? I mean, can it be approved immediately, or it has to?
He said it would not.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just whatever meeting that you would do.
Well, I don't that people that none of us
I'm
would
telling
want to
you,
say
if
no
there's
to 911 or public safety. I mean,
We know she's understaffed, so Amy, I'm saying that it's in my purview. If she wants to go outside and fill it out tonight and action it, then
nobody would, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I would hope people wouldn't think.
Technically, the resolution is not effective until tomorrow anyway.
I think I know this has to be done. And I think my only problem was like if something came about where they needed to fill that position and it affected public safety, that they would have to wait a month or so many weeks for it to be approved. I think that was my only problem.
Timeliness.
I will tell you, then we can do that. I think we're probably gonna have a busy summer here. If we get in that situation, I think we can get a quorum together and take care of it. So.
There's a commitment to do that.
Yes, I will. The motion on the floor is to deny resolution number 2021-11. Was it postponed?
Postpone.
Okay, postpone resolution number 2021-11. All right. I'm gonna call for a vote. All those in favor? 2. All those against?
I think we can.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay. Vote is 2 for, 5 against.
I'll go ahead and make a motion that we proceed in adopting resolution 2021-11 as presented.
A second.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor by Anton, seconded by Amy. to approve and implement resolution number 2021-11. Further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Okay, against? Okay, 5-2. Motion passes. Hey, great conversation.
Good discussion. Very good discussion.
No doubt.
And I don't think any of us are that far apart, really.
I don't know.
End of the day, it's the same thing.
Right. It's just a timeliness.
That's all it is.
Do you need to fill one out right now?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Hey, you can have
He
mine.
said that now. It's on tape.
Here, you got it. Thank you.
Here's the problem though.
There you
It
go.
doesn't take effect until tomorrow,
Right,
so
so
we couldn't approve on it.
Our
tonight.
25th meeting.
All right, gosh, you know.
We already did that item
This
on the
is the
agenda.
first time I've heard laughter in this room in a while. All right, I'm gonna open up public hearing. Sheriff,
Now, wait a minute, so back to the budget, did we finish our discussion on that? I know that we're gonna set the meeting for the 25th, but do we wanna, weren't there a couple of items in here? Like the surveyor and the sheriff?
Surveyor, this is not on there because he came over and told me that he was next month's meeting.
Okay, so maybe, then that's good.
Yeah.
Was there any other budget issue we should bring up
No, well,
before we move?
one, and I know you guys, last week, once sure we talked a little bit more, but you do have a couple of things on the jail of consideration. So let me share, but I think it would be topics for you to review at that meeting. On the tax increase that was done for the jail. Remember, 80% of that can go for jail maintenance, and 20% of that can go for salaries for people who operate. I would recommend at the 25th, that be one of the topics of discussion,
Absolutely.
and the sheriff would be very involved. I will have, and on, Councilman Ness, I will have probably a couple others in that area, just for suggestions, but I'll have those before you wait for the 25th.
absolutely. And you're still gonna remain here.
Yeah, absolutely, I'll just be outside.
We do have item J, which is 2022 pre-budget planning and guidance, and I'll bring you back.
Okay, all right.
Yes, ma'am. Go now.
Go now.
Go now. Go now. Give me a hug. Hey, Sheriff, let's go ahead and have a prayer for Amy's mom, if you wanna go ahead and lead us.
Sure. Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you right now, in prayer for Amy's mom. We don't know what's going on, but you do. Lord, you're the great physician. Your hands, be upon her right now, Lord. Just comfort her. Let the Spirit, have its way with her, Lord, and we know that your will is going to be done. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right. I'm going to open the public meeting now.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Yes.
We're into an hour and a half already. How long is the next few items, especially since we opened the
Do
public?
you need a break?
That's what I'm gonna ask you
Okay,
for.
we can get through him
Let's
and
do
we'll
the
go.
two hearings first and just.
Let's get to the
take a
public
break.
hearing. and
I didn't
we'll-
know how long it was, that's what I was asking.
I don't think it'll take.
I don't think so.
Okay. Oh, okay, I see it right here, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, so you have in front of you 4 requests for additional appropriations.
Should be 6, I think.
Okay, well,
Six, I got.
I got 3.
I got 4.
I have 3, we're adding a statewide 911. I have 3.
There were only 3 that.
Let's go with the 3 you got.
In that case, I'd like to make a motion that we authorize the following 3 addition of appropriation requests from the Sheriff's Department, starting with $14,898.47. Jail housing to general, Cash balance to maintenance, 49060000. I got no clue what that number is. It looks like a T, T0, so account number 1000000053070. The second one for 14,790.49, jail housing to general. Cash balance to equipment, line number 49060000 T0 to 10000052070. Forgive me for all the zeros, and the final one of 1,465.39 jail housing to general, cash balance to contract services, line item 49060000 T0, to line item 100.
It's supposed to be two, that other fund.
The word
The
two.
ward two, sorry.
I was reading it as zeros.
It's okay.
Please forgive me, as to where you know they go. 1000005. I just feel so, am I right? 370000.
Okay, thank you, Chuck.
I need to add,
Appreciate that.
Yes,
per state board of accounts, we can do this, we just have to take it from, we have to remove them from the general fund and put in the jail housing fund. We can't take
Our general fund or his general fund?
out of his general fund line items. They're opposite on what's on the paper.
Okay.
But it will zero them out to where he will not be in the red.
With the clarification of the auditor to these items.
okay. I'm looking at, and I know he's done some reading, 1459.19, 14,898.47.
Point of order, we need a second before we can begin discussion.
Okay, good point. Do I hear a second?
That's it.
All right, seconded by Nick. 1459.19, 14,898.47, 1,465.39, 14,790.49.
Okay, so the 145919 is the 911.
Right.
That's not a part of
I got it, so
that particular motion.
I'll restate. 14,898.47, 1,465.39 cents, and 14,790.49 cents. All right. Motion on the floor by Chuck, seconded by Nick. It's an internal move.
It's using jail housing, which is not a part of any general fund.
No. And then
There's money in that fund, so.
The section these funds I've read is like, because of things that happened in the past, that's one of them.
But we also remember we did discuss this last time.
We gotta get these in the block.
Instead of asking for appropriations from you guys to cover this, we're just
Transfer.
using our money in jail housing to cover the general fund.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? 6-0. Okay,
Transfers are okay.
I can do those.
Okay. Including the jail housing requests for the additional money into the jail housing accounts that are in red, both the maintenance and equipment one.
I have to see what you're looking
Can
at.
I bring it up to you real quick?
Well,
Why don't we got these passed, you guys meet later on, then we can come back at the next meeting and take.
yes.
all right. 911. We have an appropriation request in the amount of 1,459.19 and statewide 911 dispatch to account number 122-5000.
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor by Chuck,
Second.
seconded by Nick. Appropriate from 1235 cash balance, so this is internal funds you're moving. Okay, any further discussion on that? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? 6-0.
Submitted some additionals, but she didn't give them to me until May the 4th. And they have to be pre-advertised for the 10-day period, so there will be, all of these will be in your June meeting as well for additional deliberations.
Is it a closed hearing?
Yeah, is there anything else during this public hearing? All right, I have a motion to close, the public hearing. As said, I'll close it, and we're gonna take a 10-minute restroom break.
So these additional these are done now. It's weird how this is broken out, open hearing, closed hearing, but it's for everything.
See, I didn't know if you could make and take the actual action in the public hearing, or if you had to bring it back into the regular meeting. I always thought you had to bring it back in the regular.
Close the hearing, then, oh, okay.
So this additional appropriation approval, item B, what's that?
That's what we were just saying. In the public hearing, you make
Oh, right
discuss it,
here.
and then when you come out, you affirm what you decided in the public hearings.
We'll do that.
Because I think,
Just for the sake.
I think you have to bring it out.
There's another spot for us. You do, you
Am I gonna start a war?
What's that?
Am I gonna start a war? I filled out my exemption form.
Okay, well, how do you wanna handle this? Cause you know what, I wasn't even thinking of it. Okay. Alright.
I mean, I have paperwork on there, discussion. And there,
Oh, good times ever.
I mean, I was planning on bringing it up, that it's not compatible and it's not gonna work, and until they can figure something out, I need a person.
Yes,
Do you even qualify for the exception in this policy?
There's, I mean, it's not public safety.
I couldn't fill it out. There are no alternatives. No one can answer the call. All right, so you go share.
I'm afraid to turn it on.
You just hit
I'll tell you what, before you go, get back to Jim.
Sheila, are you good?
That way you.
I promise I wouldn't argue.
Is our sound back on? Can you make sure that that's,
This isn't blues.
just wanna make sure it's back up and running.
You doing all right, Ken?
All right, Kenny, I know it's past your bedtime,
Past my bedtime.
let's go ahead. She's got additional appropriation approval on here, and she's doing that to basically, affirm that what we appropriated during the public hearing is the road ahead, so we voted on it and approved both the sheriff's department and 911 dispatches. Is there anything on that, might have noted or, okay. Sheriff's Department, SRO payment status.
Yes, and I want a big thanks to Sheila, thank you Sheila for all your help, you've done a phenomenal job, and we're praying for John as well too, okay? We know John's had it. He is also part of our prayers, I forgot to mention it a while ago, but I know John's struggling, so. Sheila got with the school, we received our check, we're gonna receive our check from the SRO officers, and I believe it's
$91,000.
$91,000. Now, with that being said, if you remember last year, we came for an additional appropriation of $156,000 for payroll, which water on the bridge didn't get done. This money needs to go into my payroll for the SROs, okay? It doesn't need to go to the general fund. Does that make sense to you?
Well, the SROs are paid from the general fund anyway, so, yeah.
I just want, am I saying that right, Sheila?
Yeah, and again, trying to figure out how to offset him being in the red so much. If it just goes in the general fund, it needs appropriated from the general fund to that line item.
To the payroll. But
Yeah, I don't necessarily.
We gotta get the general fund money in first.
If you're paying it out of a specific line item for those individuals.
We're not.
Then where's?
Yes, it's just miscellaneous revenue. So we count on this money to come into the general fund, and it is coming in, and so we're good. The expenses are already out of the general fund as well, so they link up in that fashion already. There's nothing special that needs to be broken out,
okay, and
if that makes sense.
well, between appropriation transfer, I'm about lost. Because last year's budget, there was not budgeted for my SRO officers.
It is. It's under regular wages.
Okay, but we had a shortfall of $156,000 last year, which was holiday pay and our SRO officers. There's where your $156,000 came to. It was short, whether it was budgeted or not, or maybe it wasn't appropriated and budgeted into my payroll.
You know, that might have been more the issue.
See what I'm saying? It wasn't put into my payroll. That's the reason last year when we came for the $156,000 was because of the 2 SRO officers, the holiday pay, and a little bit of overtime. So that didn't get took care of last year. So now your general fund this year is another $156,000 redder, because that needs to be paid. That $156,000 last year needs to be paid. Because it never did get took care of last year. We came in December for an appropriation of $156,000, it never got appropriated. The general fund, does that make sense?
Can I ask one question? Somehow, when we started the SRO program, I thought we put it underneath the sheriff's department.
We did.
To include payroll, uniforms and everything like that. So how are we now taking it out of general fund? When did that get switched?
Well, it's been always out of the general. It's a part of regular wages for sheriff's department. Those are officers like everybody else, so.
Maybe I'm misunderstanding it as well, because again, sometimes it's gonna be really.
It can be.
Which line item is that? Do you know? Which line item is 156,000 negative?
Well,
That was his payroll line item out of his 1,005, which is part of the county general. However, the monies were spent out of that line item specifically for those SRO officers. So if you're spending it out and it's not going back in, it's gonna be part of that 156,000 that he was in the red. So how are you, again, you're spending money out of there, and yes, that comes back in, but it's not coming to his budget and his line item specifically. I feel that 91,000 should go to that payroll line item to replenish the funds that are being spent.
It seems logical to me, but can I ask a question? And maybe I don't have enough detail on this. How is it that we did not, well, I'm sorry, this is 2021, forgive me, never mind.
It is, yeah. But I agree with Sheila, because in the general fund, it's broke down for me, payroll, this, and this. That $91,000 we're getting back for the SRO, yeah, it goes into the general fund, but the line item is payroll. That 91,000 needs to go back into that line item.
That line item.
If that makes sense.
No, that absolutely makes sense. Does this require any action, or what are you thinking? You're shaking your head, Anton.
I don't agree, because then the whole point is this is counted as miscellaneous revenue for the general fund for budget year 2021. The budget that we passed, that the DLGF approved for 21, is counting on this money on being deposited and put into the general fund. We already budget for those officers out of the general fund, so it's good, it's even.
So what
It's the way it should
we're
be.
saying is we have $156,000 missing from last year.
Well, and that's a whole nother issue, because there was a deficit of some sort for some unexplained reason at the end of the year with, the discussion we had with transactions.
But the unexplained reason is explainable. Wasn't budgeted in my payroll. SRO officers are paid out of the general fund under the sheriff's department's payroll. That was not part of my budget. That to SRO, that fund there, as well as the holiday pay, was never put into my line items. That's the reason you were short last year, $156,000.
Yeah, I think the holiday pay is definite.
SROs and there was,
And then we added, when did we add the second SRO? When was that?
oh, and I can't remember what happened yesterday.
That was.
Was it in 19 or 20?
19, that was 19.
And when in 19? It was towards the end of the year. After budget hearing for 2020.
Regardless
Yeah,
of
that's probably why.
what didn't happen or didn't happen last year at the December when we appropriated it. It's really right now, it's.
Yeah.
But for me, when I'm looking at my budget, even though it's out of the general fund, I have to look at each individual line item. And that line item in payroll is in the red. So that $91,000 to me comes from SRO will help clear up some of that red.
Well, but for 2021, the grand total for regular wages is correct. It encompasses both SROs, so that part's square. And we're now getting the revenue that we are counting on getting and depositing into the general fund for that, so that's square. So there's really nothing, if you decide to earmark this and reappropriate, which we can't do, then we're shorting the general fund 91,000. We're in the hole 91,000 more dollars, if that makes sense. Because you can't.
That does make sense, but it still doesn't explain why that line item was $156,000 short.
Last year? Yeah, that part, I don't know.
That's what he brought to you guys on
Yeah,
December
and
18th.
we did appropriate,
For the
but then
addition.
that never was done,
I want
I guess, so.
So one of these positions has been here 3 years, I would say. How have we always done it?
We've always done it by budgeting for it and then receiving it as miscellaneous revenue. We've always done it that way. This shortfall from 19 is an anomaly, or 20 is an anomaly, and it's partly due to not putting in the holiday pay. We know that. Half of the SROs, because we did it after budget hearings for 2020, so those numbers didn't reflect that. And then the other part, we had appropriated, I think, Riverboat to cover that deficit. But that transaction, according to auditor's records, was never done. That's one of those transactions that you asked about at the beginning of the meeting, is why that wasn't done. So we're not square. I would rather us square that up using the Riverboat as we originally intended, but leave this alone, because this is a part of the general fund, and we have to have that miscellaneous revenue in the general fund.
Well, we can do that, it's no problem.
We just have to redo what we did already at the end of last year.
Will he have to write up an appropriation for that?
Well, and so that goes into the whole, we're gonna have a meeting in 2 weeks, we're gonna be looking at what wasn't done, what was done, and recalibrating some things. I think that would be the time to redo that.
Because that's where you're getting at, and I don't want to drag it very long on that part. Because the things that didn't get done last year,
Right.
I ate all that this year. I had to pay for all that.
And so has the
So-
other funds. Anybody that thought that they had encumbrances or the additional appropriations are already paying for them out of the 2021 budget, so they're gonna be
So with-
short.
And with that being said, then wanting to cut an additional 20% from this year's budget, when we're already taking care of
Last
what
year.
wasn't our fault last year, is kind of, it's gonna be tough for some departments.
Oh, yeah.
It's just-
Yeah.
No doubt.
Just a technical point, and I'm gonna ask Anton and the auditor, although wouldn't think she'd have this answer. Didn't we also have the DLGF change for these, instead of being seeded or C-added to this new Lit 2 in 2018? Wasn't that true? We had that big change? Or was that 2017?
Not sure what.
Because I'm pretty sure that this is part of the problem. Outside of last year's problems.
Oh, you mean the checkbox issue?
Yes.
Okay.
No, not the checkbox issue.
No.
Didn't we change, didn't the state change the way we do our line items? We went to lit and then we got rid of C-edit, we got rid of the C-did, we got rid of this.
Yeah, that wouldn't affect it necessarily.
So we need to.
I'm just wanna make sure that we got it right in my head.
But current budget, your line item shouldn't be in the red because it's, $1 million+ and we're not even halfway through the year, so it shouldn't be in red anyway.
Well,
What your regular wages line item. The issue is towards the end of the year, you might be short because of the situation, but supposedly in December's meeting, we had voted to use Riverboat to cover that.
You did, but it didn't get done.
And then it didn't get done, so that's what needs to be redone.
The $156,000 that didn't get appropriated, I had to pay for out of this year's budget.
In lieu of the Riverboat appropriation.
Yes, so.
So we have to just simply re-entertain the Riverboat appropriation. That's the solution here, to not doing anything with this 91. That's what we need to be focusing on. That's the bottom line, right?
And that also needs to go on your 2-week meeting in the view
Yes.
of, you're gonna be taking that $400 and some thousand there, now you're taking 156 out of it, so you're.
I think we
you're
need
gonna
a little bit of a
reduce lot.
broader look on that before we take a vote on something like that.
I'm good with that.
Okay, that's my argument.
As a technical point, and I know probably nobody can answer that unless Jim's standing out there, but as a technical point, because it wasn't conducted in 2020, if we then take up an appropriation to fill that non-effective or let me use the correct term, neglected appropriation, do we have to nullify that appropriation or recognize that we're
It wouldn't hurt.
funding that appropriation, because to me, it seems legally speaking, there was negligence conducted somewhere, that it did not get done.
I think it's a good question for Jim.
Well, that's why I said, I wonder if Jim's around.
I'll tell you,
Darn,
I'm in the fog right now.
It's very confusing.
Clarity wise,
But I think that the appropriation automatically dies if it was supposed to be in 2020 for 2020 use, and it didn't happen. It doesn't just carry over automatically, so
Well, that's why we
it
have
kind of
to do another one,
expires.
but the point I'm making is that it was neglected, and something needs to be annotated about that within our
I
meeting.
think probably a motion just identifying that this is a redo of one that was originally done, it's supposed to be done December 2020 to close out that budget year. It didn't happen, and therefore, we're gonna be redoing it now.
Fair enough.
You know, something to that effect. Does that make sense? I know you came halfway in the conversation, but.
It didn't, yeah, but I was saying,
Yeah.
what wasn't done, as I talked to the auditor and state board of accounts, you can't do it, so.
Yeah.
It's just as if it did not happen.
There you go.
Therefore, we have to start again, but making a note of why, or to explain in the minutes, makes sense.
So put that on your list for the 25th.
This is.
Oh, no, don't worry, I'll have a motion ready.
Okay, this is, yeah. And I mean, either way, Sheriff, it's gonna settle up. It's just the technical nature of how to do it, so. Yeah.
like you and them.
yeah, all right. Did we cover the sheriff's pension plan in this conversation at all?
Right, well, that's why towards the end of the year, we might have to fix it.
Yeah.
We don't have to do it now, but.
Pension program fund, we can put it together. Once again, on a neglected part of the situation, the pension fund for my officers, that is due, I'll keep it short and brief. That is due December 31st of this year. It's $266,000, $266,341. $266,341. Correct, Sheila?
Yes.
Okay. Now, the pension didn't get paid last year. So Sheila, we had to send a check that money that you'd appropriated this year, budgeted this year, was sent to pay for last year, correct, Sheila?
Yes.
Okay? So, at the end of the day, or end of the night here, what has to be appropriated, and we have some time to discuss some things, we don't have to do it all tonight, I just wanna make aware that at the end of this year, $266,341 is due to the pension fund. Please keep in mind that next year, pension fund, your minimum contribution you can make next year is $280,117. The totally funded is $303,398. There's only like $23,000 difference next year. Now, they budgeted for this year, how much was it, Sheila, what was it?
232,000, they got my notes down over there somewhere.
$232,000,
somewhere over there.
So that difference, that 232 that was budgeted for this year, what really needs to be paid at December 31st is 266. Whatever that difference is between 266 and 232, $30,000, let's say, I can pay and willing to pay out of my jail housing fund. That way, the total pension of $266,341 will be paid by December 31st of this year. Does that make sense? Everybody,
So you're saying in essence, we would pay 230?
Yes,
2/3.
And that's not counting whatever's accumulated,
correct.
okay,
I
into
mean-
tax warrant and civil.
Let me get there real quick, and I won't take that much of your time, I don't need to. As a sheriff, I agreed a long time ago, all my tax warrant money, I do not collect a dime. I don't collect nothing off my bin check, my civil process fees, which I'm entitled to. If I do not do that, I've always turned that money over to the pension, to help pay the pension program. You guys all agree to that.
Appreciate it.
Now, anything for you, Earl, I like you, man. So,
Yeah.
okay, hey, it's getting late. So here's what we got. To help the cause. Last year, none of the tax warrant money was attributed to paying the pension program. You have in there right now in my tax warrant money fund, $28,297. Okay? Now, if you remember, we budgeted some of this money to be spent towards the pension, but it never was.
It never happened.
So, okay. 28,297. Okay. I have tax warrant processing fees. We process tax warrants at the sheriff's department, okay? In that, I have $5,461. Okay? Accident reports. And these are new, but I'm willing to help out the cause. Accident reports, I have $2,265. Bin checks, my guys do bin checks all the time, hundreds of them a week. $7,420. I have never, ever contributed to this money to the pension program. I did civil process fee and tax form money to help out the cause. If we can utilize some of this money here, I'm not saying let's take every dime of it, to help the pension. If you guys fund that $232,000 that you're talking about, I already told you I make up the difference. That $232 that you gotta come up with, if you can take some of this money to help that cause to pay the pension program, I'm more than happy to do that for you.
Noted, and we thank you.
I'd like to note something.
Yes.
If we budgeted that last year, why wasn't it paid?
I was just gonna ask that question. Where did it go? Because we
Exactly.
budgeted for it.
We budgeted.
Specifically earmarked
Specifically.
the correct amount of money from the 2020 budget
That's
to be
right.
spent in December for that payment.
All right. Madam
So,
Auditor, do you know where?
do we know anything about that?
Okay.
Cause
Put that on the list.
I did look these up through the program, and got them printed out for you today. That's what says that we have in these line items. So I'm willing to contribute the biggest part of this to your pension fund. Also, just throwing it out there.
Write that down.
Sorry.
I'm writing it down.
In my jail housing fund, which I know you made some appropriations tonight, so we'll have to deduct some of that. I got $244,000, $244,604 in my jail housing. You owe $154,000 on your land payment, storage units next door to my jail. Okay? It's $82,000 a year. If we can get my pension program squared away, and I'll help you with the shortfall, I can pay your contract off out of my jail housing fund money, $150. Yes,
I thought it was gonna come from your correctional. Because maintenance and the upkeep.
Maintenance. It's just maintenance.
Okay.
Can't be for purchasing.
Mhm.
The caveat to that, and I don't know if they're still here or not, is we bought that piece of property, or the commissioners and council, the purpose was to down the road to maybe add on to the jail or build a new facility, so on and so forth. That was the whole purpose of buying the storage units. If I pay off a loan for you, not only would you get the 82,000 out of the general fund, you'd also be receiving the full benefit of the storage units that we're renting out.
Do you have any idea what we're getting on that now? I haven't seen no.
Is that going straight into the general fund?
There was an update on that at the commissioners meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the bills in your packet tonight, cause there's not enough in the fund to pay it, and the balance is at the top.
But are those receipted into the general? Or is there a specific?
There was a special fund, wasn't there?
Yeah, there's a special
Yeah,
fund for
I think
it.
Anton's right.
Mr. President, with that being said, you have a bill due of $40,000. Is that right, Sheila? The payment is due?
Yes,
Yeah, 40,649.
So, I don't know how much you have how much do you have in that line item, Anton? Money wise?
You mean the amount that we budgeted for
That you get from your revenue from the storage units, how much?
Oh, that I don't have that.
Now, when you say, I don't know if they're here or not,
Don't shoot.
and I remember this being a point of discussion at the commissioners meeting, but were they on board with this action as well?
Yeah, of course, I have the caveat with it, of course, you know what that is the building the jail. Regardless of the situation, whether the commissioners proceed with building the jail and getting that passed this year or whatever they do, that's gonna be up to them. If this paying off this piece of property will help alleviate some of the stress on the general fund that paid for, I'm willing to do that.
Well, and I got you, Chuck. I appreciate your generosity, and that means a lot, and it does seem like the best course of action that I've heard of. Really, there's two things you brought up. One, well, I'll get to one in a second. Two is, if it'll help us relieve some stress on the general fund, the answer is yes, it will. The first thing is, as far as building the jail, the council doesn't have the authority to decide whether to build a jail. So just to know that this deal isn't something that we can satisfy.
No, I agree, and, like I say, we're gonna be coming to the commissioners in the second meeting in June. RPW, Garmong, Jeff Peters, all the financial people's gonna be here. We'll present our case. Hopefully the commissioners will look at it and maybe open up for some public meetings, to get public input on what we're gonna do with the jail. But regardless, if you think that paying off this piece of property, I know you want to pay 2% interest. If that's gonna help you, and we don't have to decide tonight, if you think it's gonna help you, let me know, and I'd be happy to sit down to discuss that with you.
Yes, sir.
So the payment for the storage units, okay, go ahead.
I'm gonna tell you something right now. That man is an awesome man. That man has helped out his sheriff's retirement fund, and he has done a great job for this county. Okay, and Sam, I love the fact that you make 12 years now, and having gone over the last 7 years trying to put a jail in this damn place and get updated by the state, and the inaction, and I'm gonna say it exactly like this, the inaction of not just the current commissioners, but past commissioners to get this project started is an absolute disgusting failure on their part. We have had the numbers, we have had everything going. I'm tired of sitting here year after year after year, getting supposed agreements with anybody to get this project started. I'm done, no, let me finish, I'm pissed, this is pissing me off. 7 years ago, we had a company come in and tell us it was gonna cost $6 million to add on to our current, jail, or $16 million to build a new jail. Everybody was on board with the commissioners back then, till one of them left, and then somebody else came on and personally told me that he didn't wanna build the jail. Even though we're getting letters from the state recommendations saying we're not meeting standards, and if we don't start meeting standards, then we're gonna be punishments. Anybody forget this? Anybody remember this?
I do.
All right, so I would recommend that this council not agree to that until the commissioners vote on doing the project, period. Because I'm not gonna accept words from people anymore, not on this issue.
But, not to interrupt you.
Yeah.
But at the second meeting, commissioner meeting in June, we'll all be coming back to present to the commissioners, what the final, findings are. And it'll be up to the commissioners then to decide we already know it's $10.2 million to make it renovate, which adds no facility to our current facility, or if they're going to process the fact that, you know, what can we get for 18 million, what can we get for 15, or what can we get for $12 million? We'll have all that for them, so that'll be up for them to make a decision.
But the point I'm saying is we're the ones who approve whether he can use that money for the paying off of that property. But let me state once again, 9 years ago, I sat here in this same chair and I said this county should consider bonds for the upcoming project of the jail under Sheriff Richardson, who had back then even recommended it. And this council did nothing, and those commissioners did nothing. Every year, it has gotten worse and worse and worse until the point we're now getting 2 letters a year saying, well, now actually we are currently in a stasis. Let me not make anything exaggerated. Currently, we are in a stasis with the State Department. Am I not mistaken there?
We got some problems.
Yeah. We're in a stasis, but we got some problems, okay? And I'm pointing this out to you because it seems like everybody forgets. I'm not gonna let this go. I swear to God, I've been on this council for 12 years, 9 of which I've advocated about the jail. Why? Because that gentleman and I worked together in the jail. I know what the jail is. We have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to polish a piece of poop. And I am tired of the inaction by every commissioner from the last set of commissioners to this current set of commissioners to commit getting this project done. And I personally would not want to see him donate that $154,000 to buy or pay off the storage facility that we bought 5 years ago to help expand the EMS and expand the jail. I'm sorry, I hate to be, I'm not mad at anybody, I'm just frustrated after doing this for so long, especially, do you have any idea how much construction costs though? Anybody see what the price of plywood's gone up to? $95 a piece. That's a 300% increase. What do you think it's gonna cost it? That $6 million, or the $9 million to add on, and that $16 million just 7 years ago? What do you think that's gonna cost now? I'll guarantee you it's gonna be $20 million basically if we just redo the jail we got now. I'm sorry, please forgive me, I'm tired of it.
Well, and in light of even our financial situation, a part of that is due to dumping hundreds of thousands of dollars over all these years into the jail. And that's a concern in the long run, as far as cost and efficiency of the cost.
For the taxpayers, and I understand, I'm a taxpayer too, and all of you said here. But you're gonna have to weigh the odds you're coming to, you know, like kicking the can down the road. Now we're out of road, we're out of the can, so to speak. So I mean, the commissioners are gonna have to make some tough decisions, and I think we have public meetings, get public input, see what the public has to say. The problem that you're facing now is we're just Band-Aiding a real serious problem.
Not to mention, just 2 years ago, when we introduced the public safety tax, we held a public hearing, and we had members of the public in here, and a majority of them supported the reason for us implementing the PST.
Chuck, listen, I totally, know all the concerns. The truth is, and I gotta take back the meeting, we don't have the power to rectify this. We have a function.
No, we don't, but we do have the power to say, no, we're not gonna use that $154,000 to pay off that storage
I
facility.
do have a question, and this is a hard question, Sheriff, so.
Go ahead, sir.
If, you know, if you have the money to free up paying this, you know, is that also money that is going unused? So my question is, if we're trying to look at what funds have balances available to go towards the deficit, you know, is it on the, you know, are you saying that, hey, this is money that I have available and you guys can pay, you know, this note off with it, you know, but are there priorities over here that it's available for as well, or can be used for? And I've not looked at the legality of using those funds.
I know what you're saying. Here's my number one concern. The pension from all of them got to be paid for. They've earned that pension. That money is theirs. They're entitled to that money. It's part of their pension. It'd be no different than your savings account. Short example, if you can pay 100,000 or 90 or 80,000, let's say you choose to pay 80, you cut $20,000 short. That $20,000 that doesn't go into their pension fund, they don't draw interest off of.
Right.
We draw 6% interest off our pension fund. All the years this county has shortfall the pension fund because they couldn't pay it in full, it's not fair to the officers. They go out there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, protect and serve everybody here in the county, good, bad, and ugly. The pension fund has to be paid in full. You can use jail housing money to pay the pension fund if that's an avenue you need to go. I just wanna make sure that gets done first.
Okay.
I hate to throw a monkey wrench in what you're mentioning about the budget, but the loan payment for the storage units is paid out of our edit fund, not the general fund.
Okay.
And either way, it's an advantage if that proposal's pursued, because we could use the edit then for other things too. So there's a way to use that. But I just want to make sure we were clear on that. The direct general cost
Okay,
is
so,
not there, so.
Listen, I think, we're at 9:30, folks. I think what we ought to do is take it under advisement at this point. And as we meet again later this month, we'll see what kind of.
It's a creative thing, and thank you for bringing that, those options out.
The meeting I'll be going, but I'll try to listen in. If I wait to listen in, I'll try to do that.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
So, yes.
Kenny, are you awake?
Good evening.
Good evening.
But there, good morning. All I need is your appointees for the Peterborough Board. And the two people that I'm recommending to you is Susan Simmerman. She is a level 2. And Bob Jackie, he's a past level 2, but he let his level 2 elapse because he didn't feel like it was worth his time going to all the training to keep it up.
And this will satisfy the council's requirement?
Yes.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second. Okay, I got Anton first.
I do need you to waive the political party
Yes.
stipulation.
Adding in the motion to waive this political party stipulation.
Okay,
Yep.
and you're good with that
Concur.
second, okay? So, you've heard the motion, by Mr. Anderson, by Chuck, seconded by Anton. Is there any further discussion? I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? 6-0. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Good night. Should have moved to my seat.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Our highway department, representative had to leave. Sheila, is there anything pressing, and I know that Jim, you're working hard with him on, his fund lines. Is there anything for the good of the group that needs to be mentioned?
Just to reiterate very briefly, one, community crossing grant was awarded, that's over $900,000. That will go before the commissioners to officially accept that on the 17th. The anticipation will be that that bid package will be ready to go in June. The idea is start work in August, finish work in September, and that's going to be for three roads. The other one's meeting scheduled for the highway department, myself and them, going through all the funds level. There is what I would consider a healthy revenue stream on both 1173, 1176, and 1169. Just kind of fine tuning that, but they're very likely looking to make sure that all those funds are in black by June 1st. It's just more of accounting, but some really good revenue streams coming through there for the highway.
So just for clarity for, folks that are listening in, one of the funds that's listed and as being in the red is one of our MVH. But that is really not connected to the other issues. It's just the technical nature of MVH and the restrictions the state puts on using that money and how it's split out.
That's all it is. That is, Anton, I would say, really the least of the county worries. This is an accounting technicality that can be cleared up.
The aggregate is all good, it's just how it's all subdivided.
Absolutely.
And accounting for that, so, okay, I just wanna make sure that's clear.
Okay, thank you, sir. Economic development tax abatement, okay. You will see in your packet, where our EDC rep, I believe, put in the objective, no, employee, wrong one, is it in here? Mm-hmm.
It is. Needs some.
Okay.
Letter that Marcy had sent, just in regarding the specific one, there is only the one on the agenda for tonight. I don't think of which one it is. Is it Hoosier Energy?
Yeah, Hoosier Energy.
Is the one, it is not. So,
And
approved.
They excelled in all their, didn't they? They passed.
have they met all their objectives?
They do.
Yes,
Mhm.
and again, there's a letter in there as well from the board stating.
Yeah.
Should have that.
Okay. And was this originally a 10-year abatement?
Nicole, do you know?
It is.
Okay, cause
It is, but every year they have to file a compliance statement, or statement of compliance that gets reviewed by EDC, vetted to you guys for signature based upon, are they doing what they said that they would do in their ordinance?
all right, I will entertain motions to approve or disapprove this.
I'll make a motion to approve that.
Okay, a motion by Burl,
Second.
seconded by Chuck. Further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? 6-0. It's a weird place to sign, but I'm doing what you told me, so.
Wherever they put it.
I don't know.
Thanks, yeah.
Ah.
Why did we put a sign?
It's
What? What does that say?
And there's two different
So he would need to mark the property owner is in substantial compliance,
Oh, boy.
right up there. Is.
Yeah, but, do we use on both these, take it?
Yeah,
Looks like they're
bottom and top,
Alright.
all right. And one question relating kind of to the Hoosier Energy thing, and our discussion about storage unit payments. There's another loan payment that we're making to that RAMC EDC. If you remember that from years ago, there was that $1 million and whatever, and they wanted to continue that. We're paying $125,000 a year towards that. Maybe something that Sheila can double check is how many more years do we have on that? When's that gonna be done? Because that could be another, if we only have a year or two left, that could be a very helpful financial thing for us. So just something to put on the list.
Okay, drug-free grant application.
Hello,
Hey,
Courtney Cole.
well, Courtney, I wanna apologize.
You're fine.
Where do you live?
I live in Anderson.
Are you kidding me?
Oh, wow.
Anderson.
Yeah, I live up by Anderson.
Did you get paid overtime in your position?
No, but I've already texted my boss, I'm gonna take half day tomorrow.
I'm very sorry, Courtney.
No, it's fine, it's fine. Yeah, that's a hash out, it's fine. I have 6 grant applications this year to present to the council. And I'll do it rather quickly. So the first one, is from the Owen County Sheriff's Office, the K-9 unit, and it is, for $4,000. Oh, no, that's training costs for $4,000. The total funding request is for $10,000. And that's for ongoing training and vet bills for the K-9 unit.
Great.
Do you want me to run through all of them?
Sure, you do it however you want.
And the next grant application is for Court Service Quest, and that's for $5,000 is the funding request. And that is for the database for their office, the web-based system that can be accessed from anywhere at any time.
Awesome.
So that's for Quest. Then we have one for illegal substance use testing from the Owen County court system, and they're requesting an additional $5,000 for drug screens. We have Hooked on Fishing, Not Drugs is the name of the program by Kathy Newman Arthur, and that is a request for $2,000. And that is for drug-free materials, pins, certificates, chalk, and suckers, things for her program. Then we have McCormick's Creek Prevention Program from McCormick's Creek Elementary, and that is a request for $4,000.
Wow.
That's fantastic.
We have one more, it's from Hamilton Center, and it's for Matrix Scholarships and Addiction Training, and that's for $5,590.
Okay, so what's the status on all these?
These have been approved through the board, and so they're just coming to you for approval.
Wow, that's, yeah. The only, I guess, thing additional before we get to the vote, is there somebody that, we can send something to the bank, for this?
Well, this is from, if I'm not mistaken, this is from our drug-free fund that's, I forget the fund number, but the money is, there's money we get essentially that's managed by the advisory board, correct?
Is there a board or something that,
Yeah, the LCC board. Yeah, we actually meet every second Thursday of the month.
They consider the different requests and then they come up with a recommendation. Remember Dave Nugent would come to us regularly and Jill Brush and, this is a continuance of that, so.
We've been blessed by that, the sheriff department has been blessed by that.
Yeah, there's been a lot of good recipients with that money.
It comes from the drug funds through the county, so.
okay, so at this time, I take it we need a motion to accept these grants, correct?
Motion to approve the grants as read by Mrs. Cole.
Second. Second by Nick. Motion on the floor by Chuck, second by Nick to accept, and approve the grant monies. Do I hear further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? 6-0.
You ought to been on the list first, I like that.
You know what?
All so much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate the report and the work of the
Please
committee.
drive safely.
Yes, with all due respect, I can head on out of here.
We can take up a collection for you if you need.
No, just tell your men if I'm swerving to stay.
Do that right on right now.
Madam Treasurer. Madam Treasurer. Treasurer and auditor report.
Just you have a copy of the monthly
Yes.
financial report, been reviewed, Jim went over the numbers as well, and just making sure that you guys have copies. Any questions?
Thank you for providing that, that's very kind. Very nice.
And right on that first page is Fund 1148, Drug Free Community, and that's the fund that you just did action on, so.
Do you guys have anything else?
Collections have gone well for spring.
Yes,
Installments?
Harbor, right over $9 million.
Okay. And the county, of course, gets the varying percentage, 19 to 20 some percent, depending on where. So numbers should be helpful for us with settlement, which will be definitely needed, so.
There's a settlement on the 18th of May.
Okay.
Yeah, and we appreciate, people don't realize the assessor, your office, I mean, so much is done. I appreciate being able to pay online, are people turning to that option as much? Good.
We do have a lot of that.
Okay.
We have a lot more coming in, so I'm guessing we should be around 10 million by the time we're all said and done.
A lot of people paying fall as well
A lot
and
of
getting
people
that
volume.
done, so. Yeah, it's a very
We
challenging
don't have no tax sale.
time. Yeah. There'll still be some of those.
You guys, Shelley and Diane, you both look tired, and you and your husband looks tired.
You definitely look more tired than you did this morning when I, so the day has been busy, I'm sure, but.
I appreciate.
Thank you both, thank you all in the
Yeah,
office.
I appreciate your
for helping
patience.
there.
I know you guys have been here a while. Okay, anything else on that? All right, item J, we had discussed earlier, 2022 pre-budget planning and guidance. We're gonna be moving this process along. I think we're gonna be meeting more on shoring up some of the general fund issues, and we'll be able to implement some pre-budget work into meetings, in June and July. Jim, as far as the commissioners, their timelines for submission, we talked about, the possibility of working out some issues and trying to get to that 20% mark before we actually go in to budget hearings. In essence, what I'm saying is, okay, if we have to cut budgets, let's do what we can off the top before we even get there.
And then just for timing, even though it's May 10th, but you have about 20 more days in May, you've got 30 days in June. Some of these deadlines start in July, so it's about 50 days away from actual planning submissions coming in. July 2nd and July 6th are two key dates for the commissioners as far as getting the executive summary done. So really, the quicker departments can start working on their budget would be the better. And although August sounds like a long way away, I mean, we're between 50 and 80 days till you're going to be having these hearings. And in addition to everything you're doing for 2021, you're looking at that 20% for 2022.
you know, we've got a lot of stuff going on and a meeting a month for a couple hours. I just, again, wanna thank Jim for keeping, you know, a pulse on things. He's done a terrific job, and I just wanna recognize you for your work. Does anybody have any, yes, sir?
I'm gonna make a motion at the next meeting that we suspend the 2021 grant cycle and use $36,000 to help the general budget. So I want you to know I'm gonna be making that motion. I'm fairly certain I already have a second for it. And just so you know, I'd like it on the agenda, please.
Okay, we can do that. Noted. Okay, I'd like to end the department head comments.
I've got one for department head, but go ahead. Did you?
Our request for personnel.
So, did he make you do his?
No, I didn't.
I'm sorry, technical point of order. This resolution, it takes effect when?
You passed it tonight, takes effect tomorrow. So anything, if you were passed on these, it would be, you'd have to do pending the 11th, or taking other advisement to the 11th.
So we could vote on this tonight pending a date.
Yeah,
That's all.
you could.
I just wanna make sure we're legal.
But this could not take effect until May 11th.
Okay.
All right,
Which isn't.
then please note that in any motion.
We could slow things down a little bit.
No. Somebody took it to the
We're
clock.
so close.
You guys are getting giddy in your, all right. So, council, request dates 5/10/2021, department name 911 dispatch, positions 911 dispatcher, position number 18 in the comms office. The position cost is $32,017.53, and the funding source is Fund Line 1222. Reason for exemption request, termination of employee on 5/10/2021. Possible consequences if exception is not granted, short-staffed, additional overtime costs. Signed, Kathleen Lamb, date 5/10/2021.
Motion to approve the exemption of the 911 request to hire, or the fact that we now have a hiring freeze, effective date May 11th.
Second.
Okay, motion on the floor by Chuck, seconded by Anton. Further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? 6-0.
Now, Andy, I probably told mine out wrong, because I wanted to.
Did you write this?
Sure, secretary took care of all you.
Yeah, okay, I was gonna say, cause this didn't look like.
You can read that.
All right, Owen County Freeze Exemption Form, request date 5/10/21, department name sheriff, position deputy. Position, class and titles, road officer. Reason for exemption request, to fill a vacancy. Possible consequences is lack of coverage, law enforcement in this county. Elected official, signed, Leonard Sam Hobbs, date 5/10/21.
I could add something to that, to make Bobo. I want you to understand that the person that retiring is my captain. Okay? That captain spot will be vacant. Okay? With that happening, there's going to be some moving, more than likely, moving around of officers. One spot to another, so on and so forth. So technically, the captain spot still could be filled as a captain spot. I've not made that decision yet. But I just want you to know that the position that is vacating is a captain spot, so I just wanna make sure that I have room with with what I'm asking.
So what you're saying is at minimum, this position is gonna be a road officer position, at maximum, it could be a guy wearing bars.
Yes.
Okay, that's.
Motion to approve the request of exemption for the sheriff's department on hiring an officer effective May 11th.
Second.
Further discussion? Okay. Call for a vote, all those in favor? 6-0.
Thank you.
I'm gonna turn these over to you, Madam Auditor. For the record.
All right, the item I had was for Commissioner Burton. He indicated that in the IT budget, there was a mistake made in line items, the dollar amounts that are associated with computer software versus computer hardware, they were swapped for some reason. The net result is zero. There's no additional money or anything like that. But for correction purposes, to help the auditor, we want to make sure that we swap the two dollar amounts. The line items are 31301, which is computer software, and 31302, computer hardware. And we're simply going to take the amounts we've already put in those line items and reverse them.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Second.
Okay, motion on the floor by Anton, seconded by Chuck. Further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? 6-0.
The other item for Commissioner Burton concerns the maintenance superintendent's position. There had been some back and forth internally on this with Sheila and exactly what the commissioners were wanting to do. I did talk again with Commissioner Burton during the break. He reiterated and confirmed our action we already took on that position, which was it's a minimum 35-hour-a-week position. It's budgeted for that already, and we already set a rate, we already approved a salary ordinance for it. The only thing that needs to be finished with that is there are gonna be times where, depending on whatever job or project is in process, he may have a week where he might work 38 hours in a week, or 40, and 35 in others. There's some kind of a varying range there. So he indicates that he wants to make sure that we have that some money in an overtime line for that. And when I say overtime, I don't mean time and a half. I mean the time over 35 hours to 40 that they can utilize for that purpose. And he said 2,500 would be enough. And also along with that, they want to vacate the current maintenance laborer position that we have on funded. So that would go to zero. Overtime would be 2,500, and then your FICA and PERF would kind of be adjusted to figure that in. That's his final answer, Sheila. I guess we can leave it at that, if that's what he wants on the record. Do you see any complication with that, or?
I'm just taking the minutes of what is said and not debating.
Okay.
It is not what was said in a commissioner's meeting. I will put that on record.
So do you think that we should make it contingent on?
It's not up to me.
Okay.
That's what he requested to do, and you guys approved it. That is your vote.
Presented now and not at budget hearings?
Well, we already kind of took a step in this direction already. I think this is just finishing it up. I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion, we do it, but contingent or requiring that it is on their agenda at their next meeting for them to confirm or formalize for the record.
Motion on the floor by Anton, take action contingent upon the next commissioner meeting, this action be on the agenda. Do I hear a second? I think folks are kind of lost on this, and I understand why. I think there's just some technicalities in what was said during the meeting and what's being asked for. So I do think it needs to go back, because I've not had the conversation, and they need, we'll have them clarify the intent.
You have no second, so it dies. My question is, Madam Auditor, what was said that we did not get correct, or that we did not hear correct?
I can play you the tape from the commissioners' meeting if you would like the exact comments that were made, but again, it's what you guys decide. I will.
So Jim, what can you provide on this here?
I think what they were looking at is, rather than hire two people, like a superintendent at part-time, they were wanting the flexibility for this person to work that trough period between 35 and 40. Nothing about 41 or any overtime like that. Now, whether that would be weekly, that I can't say. But the intent was, rather than hire two people, full-time and part-time, hire one individual with the recognition that, since that is a single person doing all the maintenance, that there would be the availability between 35 and 40 that he would be able to work. But there's a meeting the 17th, if you want like a formal motion and lay it out, I mean, it's just 1 week away, but that's the intent.
Well, and in that case, and Chuck, I'm not stepping on your toes, because I did give you permission next, but if they're meeting on the 17th, and we're gonna meet again on the 25th, why not let them do their thing in correcting it and bring it back?
Here's the problem I have. We just passed a hiring freeze tonight so that we could work on getting the budget back. And you know what? If the time limit is 35 hours, because that's what we had already agreed to, if I'm not mistaken, when we set up this position, then it should stay at 35 hours until such time that we remove the hiring freeze, no matter how small it is. And I know somebody's gonna say 35 hours isn't enough, but you know what? Every other department's gonna have to squeeze too. So I think that's just the way it is.
Yeah, I'm just carrying the technical part of this through here for discussion, so don't kill the messenger.
No.
But it is a net savings to the bottom line because of them eliminating a position. And so cost-wise, it's a good thing, in our favor. But if there is one concerning thing, it would be what the record states, and if they're not really clear, then they need to clear it up, and then we can take action. I'm okay with that myself.
I'm going to say that we'll let them take their action, and then we'll consider it.
Maybe that can be put on their next agenda, or Jim, can you make sure there's some official closure to this?
So the motion does die because of lack of a second, and
Just I would recommend that the president ask the attorney directly to get the exact what they're asking for on record.
Right, and what I would encourage you to do, and because I've not updated it on my end, is take that courthouse budget, because we were gonna reduce contract services, if you remember, to offset part of this cost. And I'd wanna double check that number and make sure that that is brought down to the amount we last decided on. And then make sure that the correct amount for the maintenance superintendent is there. And then if the commissioners affirm or do whatever it is they need to do about this 35-hour thing, and then they need that opportunity at their next meeting and plug the rest of the numbers into the budget.
okay, so, all right, public comment. Baron?
Yeah. That's the one, hard to get out.
Yeah, and I'm sorry.
That's
for
okay.
the.
I don't know if I started very long, so I'm gonna make it quick. I came up with a list of demands that I wanna make sure that the board members, everybody gets a copy of it
Now,
to resolve our problems.
Are these the same ones?
No.
These are different.
These are a little bit different. Everybody gets treated special.
Would you characterize that more as requests or demands?
I'm gonna say demand, because it's gone on for so many years. Like, if I just keep requesting and suggesting, it didn't get fixed. If that's the way I feel.
You do understand how different that sounds than when somebody considers it?
Yes.
Okay,
That's okay.
just making sure.
You wanna read one? But anyway, I think it's pretty well self-evident, we don't need to go into a lot of discussions, but if you think about it, that's my ideas on what we need to do, and, like I said before, there's, everybody's got opinions, kind of like belly buttons, everybody's got one, but nobody wants two, or whatever. There we go. Anyway, I think the only way we're gonna be able to solve this, is not gonna be super slow or very piecemeal. And I think that even though some of these things that are on there may touch a nerve on you, that's okay. I'm sorry it does, but I think the thing about it is, it's the overall thing between the commissioners and the council that I've seen for the over 20 years that I've been here. And besides kicking things down the road the can down the road all the time, and not doing the right actions, some of the actions they have done are more hurtful than others. Now, I know we've had people before that's gone to prison for things they've done, and I know the whole story. I was here. I watched the budget thing last year, being done and participated. The point I'm making at is the reason why I put the word demands on there is because over all the years that I've suggested things, I just don't see it happening. So I decided I'd change my wording, just like, Mr. Hess said, and I'll put a demand in this time. And we'll see if anybody takes any of the suggestions seriously. So we'll do it that way. And that's about it. I think, like I said, I think it's pretty well self-evident. The other thing on here, let me do this real quick. On the one I said there on number 8, because I had a person ask me about that, and one of the commissioners did too. When you talk about embracing something, it's getting used to the idea like you can feel it, you're around it, okay, right? And this concept that we've got that, well, the states provide money for this, we've got this kind of money coming in, and here's our income from this. The way that I see, for me, the amount of money that the federal government's going into loans for, $1 trillion a year. I put $5 trillion, I just found out yesterday, it's gonna be $7.2 trillion now. But the point being, it's just starting. The form of government that we're doing, the way that they're doing things in Congress. If this is true, there's no way to pay the money. The money can't trickle down to the states. So money that you've been getting historically in the past, I think would dry up for a while. I think it would just go away. And that's gonna put a tremendous burden on everybody when that happens. Because you just can't borrow that kind of trillions of dollars and expect to pay the interest on it. So, but that's just one more thing in the list there. But that's it, thank you.
I appreciate you waiting tonight and for providing this. Is there any other public comment?
Dare I bring one more thing up? Sorry, I'm trying to get to midnight. So Jim, for our May 25th meeting, besides all the numbers and the financial dollar stuff, I'd also like to make sure that we do keep a pulse on internal controls. I think we'd be amiss to not bring that up in this meeting. There's obviously some things that auditor, treasurer, claims process and handling of money, there's a lot of those type of things that have been in place actually. There's some other things that might need some improvement or whatever, but if there's anything that's council specific, and I know we don't have necessarily anything formal, and again, when I've talked with some of our other counties, I've asked them, do you have a formal process or policy dealing with review of budgets and those kind of things, or do you just do it? And no one has a formal document. Now, a lot of them have consultants that they hire regularly to help them through budgeting and things like that. We don't have that currently, and we don't necessarily have that luxury. But maybe there's some things we can do to at least formalize some kind of a process or distribution of duty or something that can at least improve things a little bit more on the front of internal controls. So I wanted to make sure we brought that up for you to put on your list.
Okay. Make a motion, we authorize the president to sign and confirm the salary compensation summaries.
Second.
Okay, motion on board by Chuck, seconded by Nick to allow me to sign the salary confirmation summaries. Any further? Call for a vote, all those in favor? 6-0. All right, auditor comments, do you have anything more on that?
The storage unit bill. Again, it's a $40,000 bill and there's only $23,000 and some dollars in the actual fund that was set up for it. So I need direction on where to pay it from. The unfortunate part is it'll be late if we have to do it as an additional appropriation.
How much you have in that fund? Storage unit fund.
23,000, I'm sorry, 24,000.
So, but this is the loan though, for the property. This is to the bank for the loan.
To the bank for the loan amount.
Right, so we already appropriate $84,000 a year in our edit fund to pay for this, right? So wouldn't we use that line item to cover it?
Is it appropriated in the edit fund? Because the only thing that I'm aware of is the storage unit fund.
It
So-
should be. Do you have the ability to
Check.
pull that up, or?
Do you know?
What we got in the edit fund?
It's over $1 million.
Yeah.
But again, we've already budgeted for it, so there's no appropriation that we would need. Now, unless we want to use the storage facility money to offset some of that, and then we don't have to pay for as much of it out of the edit, that would be a way to improve.
We could do that.
If that's allowable, storage unit monies, So maybe the thing to do, just for your own guidance, again, there's nothing formal necessarily, but and I guess I'll make a motion that we allow Sheila to use or appropriate the balance of the storage unit fund to apply towards the loan for the storage unit property. And of course, then in turn, we won't spend as much from that line item in the edit fund.
All good?
How's that?
Where's 17,000 coming from?
What was that?
Where's the other, is it a $40,000 payment?
Edit.
Edit is where we normally budget for it, but instead of using the whole 40 from edit, we'll use the storage fund money.
No, I got that, I blanked when where the other money was coming from. I'm sorry, it happened. I'll second his motion.
Okay, motion on the floor by Anton, seconded by Chuck. Any further discussion on this? Madam Auditor, do you have it? I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? 6-0. All right, Paycor status update. We touched on that a little bit in the break. The commissioners have not made a decision on what they're going to do. Basically, you're having trouble linking up to it. We know that when we did vote on Paycor, there was it was said to us that it would operate with our current operating system. I'm being told now that's not the case. There's really no action for the council to take on this. I know there's some things resource-wise that you need figured out, and Jim, you've got those noted?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so.
When we did Lau 3 years ago, President Lau came down and we asked if there's any issues that we have, like linking up to other items or anything else. He said they'd be there for us. Just wanna make sure that it's, is back in the record.
So look, over the past month, since this report came out from Crow, it's clearly something that we knew there was issues and we took action on. There's been a lot out there, as far as social media, within this courthouse or whatever. But if anybody on this council has anything that they want to say or share, or any of you, because I want it done now, because here's the thing. My job, Jim, is there any elected officials? I mean, the bottom line is there are many offices that have got things that need fixed. Is that correct, based on this report?
Let me put it this way. every elected official, every department head that I've had any contact in any way has been 100% cooperative in everything, and Crow said the same thing. So in each department and each where, all I can report to you is, I'm not coming to one case, one anecdote, one area where someone says I'm not going to. There's questions like this particular line item, this particular fund. So all I can report to you that is that, from my opinion, everyone is working very hard, very diligently, very serious towards this problem. I've not run into a single aspect where it's the opposite in any way.
And this is not solely the council's to fix. There are other folks that have things that need fixes.
This will, look, I'll put, the council's a fiscal body. This will require by everyone, and this has been stated by officials, by Crow, officials that have come outside, that this will take a collective use where department heads who know their departments the best, know what can be cut and not cut. It will take all of these efforts, and also for your budget of information that you receive. So this will take everyone in the county.
And my point is there's been a lot, fired, the past couple weeks. I'm elected for solutions, and everybody else here is elected for solutions. I came in on, I filled the Angie Lawson vacancy on this council whenever I caucused in. And her name has never come out of my lips. We focused on trying to fix things. We've done the best we can. And now we move to solutions. And we've given the briefing, we've had Crow give the briefing, we've asked for public comment tonight. And all that's been said, we've had one person, and I thank you, Baron, for showing up tonight. So it's time to move forward, and it's time to fix these things, because a lot of people depend on us, and that's what we're here to do. So is there anything else from anybody?
Yeah, I want to say something. I don't know how many people think about it, but the auditor's office has got a lot of responsibility, And the council has got to depend on the auditor a lot to tell them where, and we've asked for the thing, in which I appreciate this very much. But we asked for that to be, just so we could see the line items all the time, and as far as I know, there was only one time, the whole time that I've been on here before, that you could read the line items if you wanted to see them. And it's hard for us to go, and a lot of times, we had to go by what the auditor said, whether you had money in this lot or this thing, and that's all we had to go by. And I don't feel that the council needs to take all the heat for what we've been taking, because it's responsibility of a lot of people, and the auditor's office, she has to do a lot of things, and I know that. And I think Sheila's trying to do it right, and I think we need to back her 100%, and everything that she's asked us to do to see the line items, she showed us. And I appreciate that a bunch, and maybe we can get this thing lined out, and it takes all of us to work together to do it. But we can do it, but we need to save all we can in every office till we get this lined out and we get it straightened up.
Thank you, Bill.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what you're talking about, but I guess if there's been words of negativity out there, I'd like to remind everyone that they can go to IC Code Title 36 and read exactly what everybody's job is in this building. And I'm talking about the elected officials. And specifically for the council, you know what our job is? Set budgets, or appropriations, or transfers. Show me anything else in there.
Anybody else have any comment?
I think Andy, a lot of what transpired I think we're gonna see a much better camaraderie and more transparency, because maybe we should have demanded it in years prior, because you can't work in the dark, because we see now by working in the dark without having all the figures that's needed, we realize where we're at. So is there a plus out of this? Maybe so. But I think we're gonna solve this problem, we're gonna look at this, and I think the taxpayers, I know they're probably upset with us, yeah. But I think they'll see us putting the effort forth to make sure this is right and that they're taken care of and protected.
Well, we're moving forward.
And I'll say that, I'm a bit of an optimist. We've got a very good council. We've got a pretty good depth of experience. We've been through tough situations before. Nick is probably is the most senior from an elected official standpoint in years of service, having been clerk, commissioner, and council on here. I'm pretty close to that. We have several veterans. We also have several new talent over with us as well, with Polly and Amy. And, Polly has, good financial and business background that she can contribute to this, I hope, and put towards this. Amy's got a good perspective, a different perspective as well. I totally agree with Andy. This is a challenge we have to address. And I think at the end of the day, it's going to make us stronger and make county government a bit more efficient and leaner. And I think that's a good thing. And I don't blame the public for being concerned with some of this. Every time there is an issue that involves money in county, no matter what it might be or how legitimate or illegitimate it's perceived, it is always considered a negative, unfortunately. Angie Lawson's name does get brought up every time. And I don't blame the public. When it comes to trust and that type of thing, it's very tough to make that up and build that up. And so it's important that people do ask questions and engage, and that we do our part to answer those questions and try to engage as well. But at the end of the day, the facts are the facts, and the process is the process, and we just have to work through that. And there's a lot of things that is not understood and that are complex. And we don't get a lot of engagement. No one shows up to our meetings, and I say no one lightly, but generally, there really isn't a lot of engagement that shows up to meetings to listen to what things we have to do on a regular basis and the decisions we make and the discussions. We had a great discussion about the hiring freeze, and we had some opposing opinions. We had a split vote. That's the type of healthy discussion I like to see, regardless of where I'm at on the vote. But unfortunately, other than the few people that are here and some of the folks watching, no one else sees that or understands that or realizes that. And that's evident for every single issue we face on this council. So I encourage folks to be a bit more engaged, show up in person, listen, don't just do one meeting, show up regularly if you can, and everybody's welcome to learn more and be a part of the solution, so.
One last thing. My statements were directly not to the public. They were to people in this room or anybody in this building. Because I don't know what you're talking about, but if I assume what you're talking about, it was for people in this building solely, not the public. The public has every right to exist.
Yeah, I didn't take it any other way. Sir?
Yeah, in the interest of full transparency, like my mentions, is were there any offers made this evening before the 5 p.m. deadline as far as for new positions and the hiring freeze going into effect tomorrow? And if so, what departments might those have been, and that kind of thing. There was a 5 o'clock cutoff on it. But I'd be real curious to know whether or not there were any last minute offers that went out to people just ahead of the hiring freeze.
Yeah, so.
Was passed this evening.
So, good question. Let me back this up a little bit, Brett. As far as the last council meeting, there was a proposal on the table to have a hiring freeze. Now, when we started the dialogue and discussion on that, a lot of folks had reasons why or why not to do that. There has been hires, and I've actually had phone calls prior to this meeting saying, hey, I want to hire somebody, and can I do this? And my reply has been, we've got to be responsible, but there is nothing legally binding right now to stop anybody from hiring anybody. And so there's been offices that have hired somebody. During the meeting, there was a question about a possible position, and I talked to the commissioners and the attorney about it, and the auditor, but there's nothing there to do. That, in full transparency, is all I'm really tracking. Have I missed anything, or is there any specific thing you're concerned
No,
about?
I just am curious, and, you know, if there are positions that end up being hired right ahead of the deadline, I'd be really interested to hear at the next public meeting.
Yeah, the deadline is actually tomorrow, right?
Well, the deadline, like getting an offer, there has to be a starting point, and it has to be an ending point. So being at 5 o'clock was the close of business, meaning no one can make an offer. I'm, as far as, I'm unaware, like, that there was any one. The other part that couldn't be done, the county council controls the deputies, so these could only been for vacancies. There could not be for new hires. So I always pick this firm that doesn't exist, the blacksmith. That department couldn't went out and hired 10 people right before the hiring freeze because there would be no authority whatsoever. Now, were there vacancies that were already open that were hired in between there? That's possible. If you're asking me, I'm not aware of them.
Yeah, that's a good question, though. I hope I'm literally telling you everything I know.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I do have one other observation, which is that, you know, in listening to various commissioner meetings, council meetings, and things along those lines, one thing is apparent is that there seems to be at times a conflating of the roles of software versus people versus processes. And, you know, having observed some of the things that happened in the past, where, you know, there was software that the county employed that was not suitable for the job, okay? I would just urge this body to not try to put off on a piece of a software system the responsibility that people had and the failure of the processes of reviewing things that took place that got us to this point, okay? And when you look at controls, you know, what are the controls that, you know, the commissioners is the one spending money, okay? What are the controls in place that, you know, checks to see what the spending is relative to what the budgets and the appropriations are. You know, I don't hear that kind of discussion.
Yeah.
I've heard for several years people running around saying internal controls, you know, like, but sometimes I wonder if we would recognize them if it bit us in the bum, you know? There's gotta be a process where this stuff gets integrated, or else it's going to continue.
Yeah. So, Jim went to that earlier tonight, and basically his, I won't say his analogy, but, you know, you're given so much money to spend, and whoever keeps on spending, and keeps on spending, and keeps on spending, and where's the, you know, that's one of the things that was brought out in the report. And the only way you get to spend more is through an appropriation, but that didn't take place either. That's something that we've got, and Jim, do you mind giving a kind of an update on where you see?
Sure, there's an internal ordinance control which matches the State Board of Accounts, and that's been passed by the Owen County Commissioner, so that's in place. The other thing that the auditor's office has been very involved in this, and looking at check and balance. So the idea would be, so I'm gonna pick a supply item of $500. I'm the department head, I'm the office holder. Before I turn in a claim, it would be the responsibility of that individual. First of all, do I have that in my budget? Do I have that appropriation? So that'd be check one. Check two, then the claim comes in. And then in my example, I'm gonna say it's $500 for supply, but the claim comes in at $600. That would then go with the auditor's office, would take a look, and then they're doing the double check and go in there. So let's go to Fund 1111, look at the line item for supplies and say, well, wait a minute, it says 500, you don't have enough money. Checking that. And then the third would be the vote, obviously, from the commissioners. But the idea is, through using the word pipeline, of checking that all the way through. And that is in place now. Those procedures can take place, you know, for the claim cycle. There's another part of the ordinance of having just a quick discussion or a brief discussion of what is the financial state of these claims. So let's say on the 17th, there's $300,000 worth of claims, just a made-up number. Where are those broken down? One thing that the commissioners have asked me to do is I just go through to the point and do percentages, and I can say 40% of your claims from the highway, 30% are from this, and we can kind of check. Well, the 40% from the highway, that's not a bad thing. Those aren't general funds. That means the system's completely working, the appropriations. Those things have been occurring the last 2 or 3 meetings, and it may be way beyond, but these areas are all taking place.
Also, I believe that the public, in far as transparency, and I know the treasurer, maybe the auditor can correct me if I'm wrong, but can't they use Gateway also to see how the budgets are going? Madam Auditor?
There is public access to DLGF and Gateway to see what is or isn't being done, yes, the general public.
So there's that available for you too, right? Motion to adjourn?
Okay.